And Madwa Jerusalem stand and face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh, Asherah, Nathalanawa, Ashabah, Bashalawam, Thawada, Amun. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives us the Sabbath and peace. Thank you, so be it. Faha'ai Makad, Asherai Makad, Psalm 121. Anya, Harayan, Mayan, oh, Harayan, Mayan, Yabawa, Isaiah, Yabawa, Mayahawa, Shai, Shamayim, Baratizla, La'a, Yanathan, Lamawat, Regalia, Yala'a, Yanawam, Shashamarka, Hana, La'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yayishtan, Shashua, Yashurala, Yahweh, Yamaya, Yahweh, Nazalia, Aya, Ya, Yamyan, Ya, Yawamam, Hashemash, La'a, Kaya, Yayarak, La'a, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamaya, Makau, Ra, Yashamar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashamar, Hawalakia, Wabawaya, Ma'aithan, I will Basham, Yahusha, Fawada, Amen.
Psalm 121 of Psalm agrees. I lift up mine eyes into the hills to my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not sleep like fruit to be moved. He will not slumber. Behold, he that giveth Israel shall not slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall smite thee by day, and the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yashrala, hear of Israel. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh.
Deuteronomy 64. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Tapla Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakwatha, Taba'ah, Atazawanka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Ka, Bashamayim, Betalanawa, Lakam, Yawum, Za, Wasalakanawa, Kababwathnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kababathanawa, Wala'a, Habiyanawa, O, Nasayawan, Abo, Awashinawa, Marad, Kayan, Laka, Hamalakwa, Waha'ala, Watha Para, La'aiwalam, Amen.
Luke chapter 11, verse 2. He said unto them, when you pray, say, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so on earth. Give us day by day our daily bread. Give us our sins, for we also forgive everyone that is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen. Ha'aisha Ramataz, 10 Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Akarim, Alpanya, La'ah, Daisha, Laka, Pasal, Wala'a, Vaibadam, La'a, Malakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawam, Hashabath, Laquadashwa, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa Amaka, La'a, Daratazak, La'a, Sana'at, La'a, Thakanah, La'a, Daina, Shakur, La'a, Thakamad, Ko, Asherah, Lara'aika, Aman.
Deuteronomy 5:7. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them nor serve them. For I, Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children of the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy to thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. For the Lord I hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day and sanctify it, as the Lord thy God commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest in the vow. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God brought thee offense with a mighty hand by a stretched out arm. Therefore, the Lord thy God condemned thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that they go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor. Amen.
Aman. You shall not be seated. Barak the Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nathan Lanawa, Pari Yahagabim, Kawara Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha'ala. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High, in the name of Christ, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. I mod up on your also stand and face Jerusalem for the opening prayers. Barak Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakwam, Abiyah, Wanara'a, Aliyah, Malak, Shal, Shemayim, Wa'aratazah, Wako, Dabayim, Kayayim, Wagum, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Adawan Nawa, Ahab Nawa, Hapalah, Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Zakar Nawa, Yahweh, Baratazawan, Aimka, Yasha'ala, Izar Nawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yum Yum, Aitha, Kayawamyum, Makwadam, Babakusha, Shalak, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazawadak, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Rapanawa, Washamar, Alnawa, Ba'akwar, Alak, Haroka, Shal, Yahweh Shai, Lanawa, Lalamanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Sabawana, Wada'ith, Shal, Dabarka, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Thawada, from Yad, Iwalam, Amen. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people, Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shah to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shah, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Patawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, War, Awaf. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Koran, Ayo, Lakorah, Ha'ain. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Bethalanawa, Hashman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha'ala, Shabbat, BC. All right, Shalom, Tawab, good morning, Shalom, peace, and Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath, Wa, meaning and, Ashar Kadash, happy new moon. All right, so happy new moon, happy Sabbath, right? It's double glory today, as we mentioned this evening, doing the service for the new moon. Now we're doing the morning service for the Sabbath day. Most High's will, everyone is in good spirits, mentally, spiritually, as well as physically. When the Most High put his hands upon you, for anyone going through certain ailments, send the angel Raphael or Raphael Allah, which is the healing power, a healing angel, along with those that are like to go and touch the hearts and minds, as well as the bodies of those of us who need some form of assistance or ministering to as well on this morning. So again, this is the Sabbath day, 7th-day Sabbath, as prescribed in Exodus 20 and 8. We'll come gather, whether physically or certain means, to come and worship before the Most High on this day. This is Hayah Shrala Kanas for those who are watching newly on the rebroadcast, or if you're sitting home with someone listening in, which means the congregation of Israel. We teach the law, statutes, and commandments found throughout the Holy Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, as well as the hidden books known as the Apocrypha, right? The 14 books that's in the hidden book known as the Apocrypha is also the Word of God, right? Which is meant for the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel, right? When you go through the scriptures, you're able to determine who they are in this last day. Subsequently, you can determine a lot of the nations of who they are biblically and correlate them to who they known as today by their worldly names, right? For us, for those who are of Israel, if your ancestor on your father's side, because the man carries the seed, right? The man bears the seed, and that's how you determine the nativity or the offspring based on the seed or the sperm. On your father's side, if your ancestors were those who were the indigenous people throughout North, Central, and South America, known as the so-called Native American Indians, Seminole Indians, Arawak, Taino Indians, so forth and so on, that was scattered throughout the Americas and the Caribbean, then you would be a part of the 12 large tribes of the nation of Israel. In addition, those whose ancestors also on their father's side, dating back at least 3 to 4 generations, if you can trace back that far, those who came over on cargo slave ships through the transatlantic slave trade, as well as even portions of those who still dwelled or went through the migration through the sub-Saharan slave trade, came over here to the Americas, Central, South, Caribbean, as well as still that some of us dwelt over in the Middle East. Some of us still stayed over there in parts of Africa, went up into or taken through the slave trade up into Europe and even to Great Britain, right? Those of us who can trace that either through genealogy or, as Christ said in the book of St. John, my sheep hear my voice, the 10th chapter, then you also would be a portion of the 12 lost tribes of the nation of Israel. And this message is for us to gather ourselves together in these last days under our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shah, commonly known to the world as Jesus Christ, who, when you read in Matthew, the 1st chapter, the angel Gabriel told Joseph that he was going to come and save his people being those who are the descendants of the nation of Israel from their sins. Sin being a transgression of the law found in 1 John chapter 3 and verse 4, because the law by the power of the Most High was delivered to Moses. Read Deuteronomy 1:1 to all Israel on this side of Jordan and scattered throughout those regions. We received the law coming out of the land of Egypt from the captivity, and the law was exclusively given only to the children of Israel at that time. When you read Psalms 147, 19 and 20, the Lord did not give that law to anyone else. It was given to us as an authority, that we would be the gatekeepers, that we would be the ones who would dwell on this earth to rule the kingdom. But because of our transgression, because of our stubbornness to go and follow the other nations, the Most High then cursed us, he punished us, plagued us, brought judgment upon us by way of either his hand or by way of captivity or wars from the other nations. And throughout history, when you read the scriptures, you'll see that the nation of Israel, when we repented, when we acknowledged our offense and we repented of these sins, came back and prayed to the Most High God in spirit and in truth, the Most High delivered us and sent us saviors, either by the hand of an actual angel or by him raising up certain men or even certain women to go and deliver us out of the hands of our enemies, which were the nations. When you read it in Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 9, right? The heathen, our enemies, right? Or the nations, our enemies. So this is the message. This is the calling in these last days that the Most High wants us to gather together, come back to this Bible, come back to these commandments, these testimonies, these prophecies, so that we can receive the instruction, receive the pathway forward unto the coming of our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shah before that great and dreadful day. So this is the grace, right? By removing the curse or the judgment of the law, that Christ has allowed us to come and learn of these commandments without being punished for them if we slip or fall. As found in Galatians 3:13. He removed the curse of the law, not the law itself. So no one should be thinking that we are able to now just go out there and willfully break the commandments. Certain things you may slip, or certain things you still need to restructure yourself to get better at keeping, but it should be in your desires, it should be in your will to want to keep these commandments, right? So that's the prologue to us understanding what the mission is, not only for Hayah Shrala Kanash, but for all the camps of Israelite schools that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, This is what the Most High has ordained us to go out and do, is to wake up the children of Israel and show them their transgressions and lead them unto repentance through the word, right? So that's our job. That's the objective here. But for most of us who have been in this journey, whether it be for a couple months, several years, decades, we all are laboring to get the same reward, right? None of us is going to usurp authority based on tenure. It's going to be based on our contributions and our charity and our walk in this truth that the Most High and Yahushua is going to acknowledge and deem each and every one of us worthy in that day of judgment, or in that day of redemption, either to condemnation. Some of us may be condemned. Some of us will receive the glory and the promises as described in Romans 9th chapter and the 4th verse. All right. So my name is Kahan Samak, which means support in Hebrew. I'm going to say Shalom to Ahawab, Shalom to Tawab Lab and Sister Emma, Shalom Elder Zaquan, Shalom O Warrior, Shalom Sister Andrea Watson, and the rest of all those who are watching on the live stream, those who are listening to the teleconference. Again, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath, and happy New Moon, Ashar Kadash. So today we're going to get back into the Old Testament, 1 Kings, the 7th chapter and the 8th chapter. We're getting into the completions of the temple of the Most High God, as well as other structures and buildings that King Solomon was making during that time period. One for the Most High specifically, some for his own house, his wife, and other different structures at that time. And then when we get into the 8th chapter, it's the dedication of the temple, right? So when we get into 8, it's the dedication, but it's not the feast of the dedication that we keep in the winter season that started when we get to the times of the Maccabees. This was not sanctioned. What we're going to read here in 1 Kings 8 was not ordained as a high holy day. This was just dedication that Solomon did, and then he held his own specific feast for that time. All right. So we're going to pick up in 1 Kings chapter 7 and verse 1. And we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahushua for the reading of his word, his will, allows us to bring forth knowledge, wisdom, understanding to his readings. All right. So it reads, 1 Kings 7 and 1. But Solomon was building his own house 13 years, and he finished all his house. Right. So we read in the previous chapter, towards the end of it, that he had concluded finishing the temple, and now he was going and also building his own house. So you had the temple of the Most High, known as Solomon's temple, but it's really the Most High's temple, built for the Most High, and then he would have his own house that he built. And not only his own house, as we read throughout this chapter, he's going to be building some other structures as well. All right. It says he built also the house of Forest of Lebanon. The length thereof was 100 cubits, and the breadth thereof 50 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits, upon 4 rows of cedar pillars with cedar beams upon the pillars, right? So you have another structure called the House of the Forest of Lebanon. Others speculated that it was called this because of the trees that Solomon was receiving from the king of Tyre. It gave you the impression that you was walking through the forest that was in Lebanon and seeing these high structures. Right? When we read before in the previous 2 chapters, Hiram, king of Tyre, and King David had an affinity one another. And after King David died, that carried on to King Solomon. And they worked out some type of trade deal where that Solomon will receive certain trees and cedars and all different kind of other type resources from the king of Tyre. And in turn, Solomon would furnish him with different types of food and other things throughout the course of all these years that they were building the temples and his houses and other things. All right. So these cedars came from the Tyranians. At this time, this was a heathen nation, a heathen king that now had an alliance with our king, who's an Israelite, which is King Solomon. They bartered. right? But they had somewhat of an affinity for one another or respect for one another. They were not at odds at each other, right? So this house of Lebanon, of the house of the forest of Lebanon, was a structure, another structure that Solomon had created that now took upon itself this type name because of the beams and the pillars that was all throughout. It says, and it was covered with cedar above the beams that lay on the 45 pillars, 15 in a row, right? So imagine that. You got 45 pillars, 15 in a row with these beams of cedar and everything else going throughout. Hence the house of the forest of Lebanon. And there were windows in 3 rows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And all the doors and posts were square with the windows, and light was against light in 3 ranks. And he made a porch of pillars. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the other pillars and the thick beam were before them. So when you read these types of scriptures and it goes into specific detail about measurements and types of things that was used, whether it be gold or the different types of trees and the beams and certain things, right? This is important, especially for the people who are the archaeologists, because a lot of times when these archaeologists who are good for the purpose that they're doing, because they will validate that the Most High's record is real. When they start excavating certain areas and they start seeing certain things that's there, they start measuring distances. They start measuring height, and they correlate that to the scriptures and prove that what the Most High or what the writers at that time put in the scriptures was on point, right? So when we read it, sometimes you may say, I don't know about 15 cubits and this cubit and all that. But if you're a person who's interested or who likes this type of thing, like if you're into carpentry, then you will go and find out what the length of a cubit is and what the breadth of this is to understand how we measured certain things back then and correlate it to what it is right now. This was our metric system back then that we was using, right? Today we use different things based on our oppressors or based on the region where we live. You know, over here we use a yardstick, over there they use the meter stick. So all of that can still be codified into a manner where you can still get the actual dimensions based on what we're reading.
Even down to the tree that you use, the cedar tree. It is prevalent in the Masonic community, like the cedar tree, right? It's some spiritual thing, right? So even back in Haiti, it's very big if you have a cedar tree in your back.
Right.
It's good, but too much into it sometimes can be a problem.
Go on, Nabia.
I was just saying, in resources, you look at like weights and measures, you know, have like good for them week today, owners, how much they kind of equate it to like modern day measurements. And then, like you said, take that and then recreate in your mind, or actually recreate it in reality and say, okay, this is what it would actually look like. We would redo this today.
Right. It's like when we was reading this evening for the new moon service, when we was getting into the Numbers, the 28th chapter, and we was going into the offerings and the measurements of 1/4 of a hen, right? You're like, well, what's a hen? Is it an actual bird? No, not that type of a hen, right? Not HEN, but HIN, and it has its own type of measure that the Lord said 1/4 of that goes into this. So if you're a person who's, you know, wanting to be attentive to detail, then you would do just like what Hanabiyah mentioned. You would go into such as like your Zondervan, one of these types of references, Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. I forget what the other one was. We have it in the back. The blue one, sky blue one. No, I forget the name of it. But you get a Bible dictionary and you can go and look up. It has a lot of good reference information that's in it, some background history that you may not get so explicitly out of the scriptures, but you know, times of the signs of the times back then had us, you know, had man go and write certain things into those different types of books. So this is the compact one. You can just go on and get an actual resource reference material that gives you a little bit more in-depth information. But again, this is just, you know, sometimes it might seem boring. It just might seem like it's just taking up space because it's going into measurements and distance and this and that. But again, like we said, you know, some people believe that the Bible is just, you know, made up stories. And with things like this, when they go out to these different areas, whether it's in the land of Israel itself, whether it's in Turkey, whether it's in Iraq, right, Syria, all these different areas that you read throughout the scriptures, right, are actual areas. And they had actual cities, they had actual things that was built. So now you can go there, and as they start going through the excavations, they now find these things and they correlate it to the Bible. So you know what? It was on point with that, right? Kahanabiyah found the video, was it last week or the week before, when you read it in Genesis, when Joseph, during the times of the famine, they went and had those big pits so that they can put all the grains and storage up for the years of the famine, so that the people that was in Egypt, as well as anyone that was surrounding, could come and get food, right? So over time, they went and found the pits, right? And you can see the big pits and how it was structured and everything. It was a nice little system that Joseph and them had. But now here, fast forward, we in 2023, and you can look at what happened thousands and thousands of years prior to and think and say, well, Dak, how did they even come to think about something like this? Well, we are not just, you know, rappers and this. We are people who are innovators, right? Joseph was an innovator who came up with these things. So it's very important sometimes when you now tap into this, if you're a person who has that type of skill set or that type of inspiration that the Lord has blessed you with, to want to tap into that, then do that and bring that information to the congregation or bring it to the populace of the people. So now let's go back. 1 Kings chapter 7, and we at verse 6 now. And he made a porch of pillars. The length thereof was 50 cubits, and the breadth thereof 30 cubits. And the porch was before them, and the other pillars and the thick beam were before them. Then he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment, and it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. So now, you know, he would have his own place, but he wanted to have a place of judgment where, you know, like how we read the story where the two women came and they said that, listen, the woman said, listen, we both had children and my baby was here, but she went and rolled over and suffocated, paraphrasing, suffocated her baby and killed it. She came and stole mine. He wanted to have a place where he could sit on the throne and come and hear all the information or all the issues or all the requests of things that needed to happen. He could sit on his throne or on a throne of judgment to hear out the matters, right? So in read 7 again, then he made a porch for the throne where he might judge, even the porch of judgment, and it was covered with cedar from one side of the floor to the other. And his house where he dwelt had another court within the porch, which was of the like work. Solomon made also an house for Pharaoh's daughter, whom he had taken to wife, like unto his porch. So we went from the temple, right, to the house of the forest of Lebanon, to Solomon's own house that it took 13 years, to now these other different things. Now we're speaking about Pharaoh's wife also having a house that's almost similar to his, where she had her own porch and things that was done in it, right? So you have different structures in different areas that was round about. Now, when it comes to Pharaoh's daughter, you remember we read this, I think the last time we went in the Kings, how Solomon said that he didn't have his wife's house near the temple because she was a heathen, right? He didn't want to have any heathen dwelling near or being near to where the actual temple is, showing you that there had to be a separation of the actual heathen being at the temple or being near toward the temple. For quiet.
And also, as we read into the porch, just so people don't get, you know, like little porch, just like we know today. It's actually rooms that he built. And it was, you know, actual porch, you know, in front of the house that he built. You know, like, you know, all you're doing a lot of porch, you know, in their mind. It's actually rooms.
Mm-hmm. So reading on, it says 1 Kings 7 and 9. All these were of costly stones, according to the measures of huge stones, sawed with saws, within and without, even from the foundation unto the coping, and so on the outside toward the great court. And the foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits and stones of 8 cubits. We're not just talking about some just regular rocks that you may find out somewhere that's sitting on the side. No, there's certain precious stones that are of high value that was also brought for the purpose of the temple, for Solomon's house, for the courts, all these different things. It's like when if you go into a certain area, you look at the floor and you like, yo, this floor is off the hook. And they have taken certain stones and cut them so that it could be laid flat. And that's throughout the whole court of that location, that place where they have established. So these were expensive stones that was being brought for the foundation as well as for the building and other things pertaining to these courts, right? It says, verse 10, and the foundation was of costly stones, even great stones, stones of 10 cubits, stones of 8 cubits. And above were costly stones after the measure of hewn stones and cedars. And the great court round about was 3 rows of hewn stones and a row of cedar beams, both for the inner court of the house of the Lord and for the porch of the house. So these things was done inside and outside, right? These precious stones, whether they were hewn or just stones that was brought from the different location as is. You had something, Paquat?
As you reading this, and it kind of remind me how the Mason, they build their whole doctrine based on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they call it the great architect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Based on Solomon's temple.
Right. Verse 13, it says, and King Solomon sent and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. So it's kind of ironic that you bring this up, because with the Masonic order, right, they liken their whole organization based off of a man named Hiram Abiff, right? He was the master mason that went and built Solomon's temple and the things that was around. But now Hiram Abiff, and what we read here, there isn't no biblical correlation that says that that man is that man. It's kind of sort of like the same thing what Ishmael does, or some of our brothers who's into Islam. They're liking to say that, you know, Muhammad is the comforter in John chapter 14, right? That when the Spirit speaks about the comforter, he shall teach you all things. Yeah, see, brother, that's the comforter, right? But there is no biblical correlation that that man was this man, because as we read here, it says in verse 14, he was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon and wrought all his work, right? So now they're like that man, because he was filled with wisdom to handle all these different types of building, right? But he was an Israelite, because it says here that he was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre. So when it says he was a man of Tyre, they say, oh, say, yeah, the widow was the one that was a Naphthalite, but he was a man, his father was a man of Tyre. So he was a Hamite, right? That's what they would think. But now, whole list, go to 2 Chronicles. Go to 2 Chronicles, chapter 2. So it says, because this is going through the same storyline. For those who don't know, when you look and understand Kings and Chronicles, they kind of parallel each other when you go into the readings, right? So we're going to read some of the same storyline here as far as for what we read before. So this is 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and 13. And now I have sent a cunning man endued of understanding of Ham my fathers, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, And his father was a man of Tyre, skillful to work in gold and in silver and in brass and in iron and in stone and in timber, in purple, in blue, in fine linen and in crimson, also to grave any manner of graving, and to find out every device which shall be put to him with the cunning men and with the cunning men of my Lord David, thy father. Right? So now here it says he was the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan. So Hiram's mother was a Danite, right? But it says he was a widowed son of Naphtali. So now the mother was a Danite, the father was a Naphthalite that was dwelling in the land of Tyre. He was the one that was blessed with all of these skill sets, right? Because you had Israelites at times who just dwelt in certain lands and certain regions, right? He probably, because of his skill, was able to go different places, probably make a lot of money doing a lot of different things, or he could have been teaching other people certain things. But when you look at what he was dealing with, silver and brass and iron and stone and timber and purple, now you're dealing with fabrics and dyes and certain things, and blue and in fine linen, dealing with the materials, and in crimson. Then he was also dealing with graving, right? He was all knowing how to engrave certain things. So when you looked at the temple and certain things engraved on the building, on the structure, he was able and knowledgeable on how to do that. Not only him, he had men with him that went along or paired with the men that David had, right? So he had a whole team that went and was able to go and do this work. So he was the one that was like the artificer that was in control of all these people to handle his work, right? So now a lot of times, going back to what Paquad mentioned, we liken this guy to Hiram Abiff, right? But there's no direct biblical correlation that says that. Now, when you even go into it, because this wisdom that he was able to receive to go and do the things for the temple, Solomon, all these, to have someone who was just like off on the left-hand side, because when you deal with the Masonic order, it's a lot of secrecy dealing with that, right? A lot of things that is done behind closed doors, like when you liken to the Masonic order, some of the Illuminati practices, some of the, even when you go look at it on a lower level, like sororities and fraternities, right? Some of those same practices of initiation and crossing over and those things also correlate to this same type ideology and philosophy, especially what you do with Hiram Abiff. So when they have that compass, when you see on the buildings, right? What is the thing? They got compass in the square, but these things are now supposed to be doing measurements, right? Because this is now what we're reading about what he was in dealing with, but it goes into practices, right? You go into the rituals and the practices that they deal with. This wasn't anything that was on the right hand side or in dealing with righteousness. It was wicked. It was secret handshakes and things that they go with us, right? We have a live stream right now. We'll go out downtown and you have brothers that's out there publicly reading all facets of the scriptures. Nothing secret. We're not hiding it. The Most High can withhold the understanding from an individual, but we're going to go and break it out, break it down publicly, right? For everyone and anyone to hear and see, right? Whereas when you go into theirs organization, they got another one for, I forget the women. It was like a sisterhood. I forgot what it's called. Yeah, what is it again? Order of the Eastern Star. I had some other friends and family members that was into that, right? I remember when I was one time I went to my aunt's funeral, and I didn't know that she was a part of that. I'm looking at all these people, I'm like, yo, what the heck? I seen the dress. I was like, what is this? Right? I see the images and stuff on their apparel, and I was like, oh, so yeah, she was a part of this organization too, right? And then I started seeing other younger generation people also join these factions. But this man, according to what we're reading here in the scripture, mother was a widow who was a daughter of Dan, and father was a Naphthalite. He dwelt in Tyre. He was blessed with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to take care of all these things, like you would say, of carpentry or dealing with fabrics and clothing.
I just want to bring Exodus 35, 30 down to like 35. Once again, Exodus 35, verse 30 to 35. And it's kind of ironic. I'm wondering, I know like you said, the Masons don't make references, even in their Bibles. They have like Bibles that are King James Bibles. They have a 4-part. like Solomon's Temple, the map of how it's designed. I think Tom McQuad and I need to. I think you can go from right the flea market. We got one. So like you look at the front, it'll have King James Bible, but there'll be like these different pictures, like these layouts of what the temple look like, and different drawings and depictions. And they even have glossaries in there too, where they'll make like connections to stuff in the picture, and they kind of go off the deep end with it. Say, okay, this is this, but then it's symbolically means this. That's where the bones will come from.
Mm-hmm.
They do that with figures often, not just with Iran, like Nimrod, but other figures. Take some moves, and they create a whole tale around them. But I laugh at this in Exodus because I'm surprised there's no secret society out there making an organization about this man. But these two men. So it's Exodus 35 and 50. It says, Moses said unto the children of Israel, see the Lord by name, Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Hur, the tribe of Judah, and have filled him with the Spirit of God, in understanding and in knowledge, and all workmanship, all manner of workmanship, to devise cunning works, to work in gold and in silver and brass, and in the cutting of stones to set them, and in carving of wood, to make any manner of cunning work. And he hath put in his heart, he may teach, both he and Aholiab, the son of Ahishamach of the tribe of Dan. Them hath he filled with wisdom of heart to work all manner of work, and of the engraver, and of the cunning workman, and of the embroiderer, and blue and in purple, and scarlet, and in fine linen, and of the weaver, even of them, do any work, and of those how they indirect reference to that. Or they'll go back to the tabernacle and try to say that, there's Masonic connections to what they were building too. But they'll just use that history. It's in our Bible, but they use it for their own purpose.
Right. So, yeah. So everyone's saying that you sound terrible from sitting back there. Try to switch the mic to get this better. So I don't know if it's able for you to come a little bit closer if you're gonna make a comment. But what I'll paraphrase what Kahan was bringing out when you read in Exodus chapter 35, verses 30. Where did you stop at? 30 down to, was it 35?
Yeah.
Right. 30 down to 35. So what he was alluding to is that it's interesting that there weren't other different types of cults or things made up like the Masonic Order that taken other figures, like how it was done with Hiram, to go and use because of certain skill sets to make a whole religion or deity around it. Same thing like how they did with Yahushua, right? Yahushua is a figure that we read in the Bible, but they've taken him and added a whole nother religion or practice and rituals around him to perpetuate, their false ideologies. So he referenced that, which is in Exodus 35, verses 30 to 35, to give another example of someone or brothers who was doing certain things, and he was just, just using as a point of reference to say, man, somebody else, I'm surprised that they didn't do that. So hopefully, if anybody in the audience, y'all a little bit farther away, speak up next time. I did switch the mics, so we'll see if it's going to be better the next go.
So I use my camera voice now. I like it.
Okay. So now we have verse 15 back in 1 Kings chapter 7. It says, for he cast 2 pillars of brass 18 cubits high apiece, and a line of 12 cubits did compass either of them about. He made 2 chapiters of molten brass and set upon the tops of the pillars. The height of the one chapiter was 5 cubits, and the height of the other chapiter was 5 cubits. And nets of checker work and reefs of chain work for the chapiters which were upon the top of the pillars, 7 for the one chapiter and 7 for the other chapiter. And he made the pillars and 2 rows round about upon the one network to cover the chapiters that were upon the top with pomegranates. And so did he for the other chapiter. And the chapiters that were upon the top of the pillars were of lily work in the porch, 4 cubits, right?
If you remember when you read in the Apocrypha, it tells you that the lily, right, is the Lord's favorite flower, right? The rose is reading the Song of Solomon, right? Like the rose of Sharon. But the lily itself is another one of those favorites of the Most High, favorite cattle, favorite bird, favorite land, favorite people, right? The flower is the lily. Now, when you look at the lily, it also resembles, right? When you look at a lily and it's opened up, it gives you the 6 points, just like the shield or a star, or the shield of David, not the star, but the shield of David, right? Got me saying star. The pomegranate. It's funny when you said the pomegranate. I saw some, and I don't know how to. If I'm even going to try to prove it, right? They say with the pomegranate, of course, the opening portion of the pomegranate is also in the same shape. But someone said, you can Google and they'll say it, but I don't know if that's true. They said that the seed that's in a pomegranate, right? You know, it says there's 613 laws when you read the Bible. It says there's 613 seeds. I saw this, so I said, man, come on, man. You know, some people. And then I saw because I saw that a while ago, and then there was another camp, not like our traditional, you know, like House of David, you know, HOC or something like that, but HOI. But there's another school camp, and they brought it out like it was a new revelation. Yes, you know, it was like the spiritual fruit, the pomegranate, like it has the 613 laws. So, like I said, I have not gone to the supermarket and probably got an actual pomegranate because you got some GMO ones and all kind of other things. So go like if you was down in the Caribbean or you somewhere else where they kind of grows naturally, someone would have to take the time, crack it open, and count how many. That's cheese. But they try to make it to be more spiritual because of the law and the amount of seeds and what the pomegranate flower or the tops of it may look like as it pertains to like the lily or a shield.
Yeah, my mom used to get that for us when we were young, and I just remember teaching kind of patience because when you crack it open and like pop the seeds in your mouth, the more that you let it pop, you more bite down, the better it tastes. So like the more seeds you kind of eat it once and bite down, you get that sweet taste.
Mm-hmm.
So anything, I teach you patience.
Right.
They're really good.
They are. So reading that again, this is First Kings chapter 7 and verse 19. And the chapiters that were upon the top of the pillars were of lily work in the porch, 4 cubits. And the chapiters upon the 2 pillars had pomegranates also above, over against the belly, which was by the network. And the pomegranates were 200 in rows round about upon the other chapiter.
Also, when he mentioned that, keep in mind when he said pomegranates, it's more so like pictures and artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Pictures and artwork.
Yeah, not the actual fruit, because it would die. It would go bad like in a matter of a week or so. So yeah, these were graven images of these things that would now be on or around in the temple and the courts and in certain structures.
Right, for decoration.
Exactly.
Like when we have our clothes and we have decoration, that's pretty much what it's about.
Right. So now we have verse 21. And he set up the pillars in the porch of the temple, and he set up the right pillar and called the name thereof Jachin. And he set up the left pillar and called the name thereof Boaz. Let me see if I can get a picture up real quick. Let me see. All right, so bear with me 1 second. All right, so this is kind of like a scale version of what we are reading in this chapter, right? So you'll see you have, make this a little bit bigger. So you'll see you have what we read before in the previous chapters. In the middle, the holiest of holies, where the Ark of the Covenant, everything is going to dwell or be resting. Then you have the veil, the separation. Then you have the menorahs that's within the holy place, the altar of incense, right? And then on there, you see the table of showbread. We read that before. Now, what we just read, coming out of that location, the door, you see that there's two pillars or two circles there. These are the two pillars that we just read, right? Jachin and Boaz. They gave them these names, which are Hebrew names. One is established. I forget what Boaz is. But that's what now Solomon, or what we're reading here in this chapter, is going to describe. And it's going to finish and start describing the things that's also on the inner court outside of the actual temple, right? We're going to get into these. I'm going to get another picture that's going to be a little bit more visual. Bear with me. All right, so here's another view of kind of what we're talking about here. So you see there's a cutout to kind of show you the insides of the temple, right? So you see the menorahs. It's supposed to be a table of showbread there. You see the far corner where you have the holiest of holies and the cherubims with the Ark of the Covenant in the middle. Now going out the front door, remember before there were folding doors to the door that enters into the temple. Right outside of that, now you have that one column, but it really should be two, but it just removed it because it's trying to give you a view into the temple, right? So this is that column that we're reading about. And then you see as you get towards the top, that's where you start having the pomegranates and all these chapters that's now reaching towards the ceiling, right? So this is a depiction. This is not the exact, right? Because you'll go online and you'll see different ways of seeing what the temple probably looked like, what they created back then, right? Then you'll have, as we get on, you'll see the sea basin and then the lavers sitting outside the temple. But this is just another view of what we're reading as it is being described here in this chapter, right? So I'll put that here for now as we read on. Paquat.
And I was saying also at the top of the pillar, the wood was actually carved as the lily, right? Carved as the lily.
Right.
And when you carve the lily, it will give you that picture, kind of like the symbol that we wear now, that people make a big deal about it, saying that, you know, we worship that symbol.
Correct, and that's why when we read in Second Chronicles pertaining to Hiram and those men that was with him, they were very skilled in engravings and carvings and things to be able to go and do this work, right? So reading on in 1 Kings 7 and 22, and upon the top of the pillars was lily work. So was the work of the pillars finished, right? So at the very top, when you see that one that's in the far corner there of the pillar, there was lilies. So if you go online and you find another detailed depiction of what the pillars look like with these two names, then you'll see that there should be lily engraving also on the top of the pillars, and there should be pomegranate also around in there towards the top where we just read as well. Verse 23, and he made a molten sea 10 cubits from the one brim to the other, and it was round all about, and its height was 5 cubits, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under the brim of it round about, there were knops compassing it, 10 in cubit, compassing the sea round about. The knops were cast in 2 rows, and it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set above upon them, and all their hind parts were inward, right? So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on this. So down here, let's It's not letting me zoom in further. But now you have these oxen that we just read, 3 on each side going north, south, east, and west. Their faces are outward, their hind parts are inward. So just like I was mentioning before, these is not live oxen, right? These are engraved oxen, right? That's as we're going to read how they're going to be overlaid, right? As they stood holding up this basin. So now this is key because we usually bring this out because a lot of times people who are in the Christianity or certain things they'll get on certain individuals if they have certain objects that's either carved with wood or graven with brass or different things, whether it be a lion or some type of animal or whatever in your house or something that you may have on your tent. You got a lion pendant. It's like, oh, that's the graven image. You shouldn't have anything graven, right? Well, here we're seeing that the Most High had the spirit of Solomon and Hiram and the team that was with him to go and build this right outside the actual temple, right? These are graven oxen that's going to be used for the purpose of the service of the Most High. The key is that you do not bow down and worship them, right? You're not supposed to worship anything in the heaven above, in the earth beneath, or in the waters under the earth. That's the key. You should not bow down and worship them. This is where sometimes we'll get on some of our brothers and sisters who are into certain philosophies or religions, Islam, where they'll go and do their Hajj to Mecca, and they now have to prostrate or bow down in front of the Kaaba stone, right? And they say, oh, well, we're not worshiping it, but you are doing exactly what it stated in Exodus that you should not do. You should not bow yourself down to worship them, to provide or give science to it, to make it be lifted up as some type of deity or power. That shouldn't be done. So these things that's being made here are not worshipped themselves by Solomon, the priest, or anyone that was of the nation of Israel. All right. Khan Nabiyah.
Yeah, it's just that it shows what we do it matters when it comes to things people say and do. It's about why they do it, not just what they're doing. So that's the question. If you can answer that why, then you can get to the key behind a lot of these things as far as, okay, you're doing this to praise the Most High versus to celebrate a worship idol.
Mm-hmm.
It's like going to food offered to idols, using that to apply to sitting down for Thanksgiving, Christmas, or something like that. It's like looking at why you're doing it. You may be doing it for a certain reason. You're gonna make sure that you yourself and people that that know the truth are doing it for the right reason, and that you can't be mistaken as far as what you're doing. Like the story with the brother in the Matthew, where he didn't want to eat the clean food that Greeks gave him because it could be misconstrued by the people as far as what he's eating and why he's eating. And it's like he's in league with them.
Done. All right, so going back, we have 1 Kings 7 and 26 now. And it was an handbreadth thick, and the brim thereof was wrought like the brim of a cup with flowers of lilies. It contained 2,000 baths, right? So now, when you go, if you were able to zoom in, you can see the lip of the brim of this basin for the sea. It was like a cup, and it had lily work all around it, and it held as if it was 2,000 baths inside of it, right? It says, and he made 10 bases of brass. 4 cubits was the length of one base, 4 cubits the breadth thereof, and 3 cubits the height of it. And the work of the basin was on this manner. They had borders, and the borders were between the ledges. And the borders that were between the ledges were lions, oxen, and cherubims. And upon the ledges there was a base above, and beneath the lions and oxen were certain additions made of thin work. So now when you go down on the bottom left-hand side, you see that was supposed to be a priest or the high priest standing there. In front of him are 5 basins. We just read that there was 10. So 5 on one side, and then you look to the far top right, you'll see the beginnings of one, and that was on the opposite side or the back side of this temple image here, right? So now, if you look in the middle, can't zoom in too much, there's now that artwork in detail that's supposed to be also on these basins with lions and oxen and cherubims also throughout. Verse 30. And imagine, I'm like, this is like when we were, I think it's in Daniel's. Hold this. Go to Daniel's. Might have read this before. Go to Daniel's chapter. Is it Daniel's? Where it talks about the temple. I know it's one in Maccabees. Maybe that's the one I want. Give me 1 second. What is that one at? The most renowned. Is that in Daniel's? Temple, the renowned of the world over. Is that in Daniel's? I thought it was in Daniel's. Because as we read the details of what Solomon did within and without, there's nothing like it, right? How they have, they talk about like the 7 wonders of the world. This would have definitely have been something that would have been on the list, if not the number one, especially because of the things that was created and dedicated and brought to be housed in it. There's nothing like, you know, what you got as far as for the Ark of the Covenant, the cherubims, all the things that was now used for the service of the Most High. Yeah, 2 Maccabees chapter 2. It's not the one I wanted, but 2 Maccabees chapter 2. Come on. So 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and verse 22. This is general. It says, and recovered again the temple, renowned all the world over, and freed the city and upheld the laws which were going down, the Lord being gracious unto them with all favor. So when it talks about the temple renowned all the world over, meaning this temple was held on the highest level everywhere in the world, right? Knowing when we read further along in this book of the Kings that we're going to get into the storyline where you had others that came to come and see the prominence of just Israel or King Solomon, such as when Queen Sheba came and she observed not only Solomon, but those who were his subjects and then us as a nation. But then coming and seeing that and then observing and seeing the temple, right? It was something that would get embellished over and over because there was nothing else like it in the world. I think, Kahan, you were speaking about like the Taj Mahal and these other different types of so-called temples that's in other different areas. Right. They have all these other, and you may look at them today, and you look at how they are, you know, created and decorated things. You be like, yo, that, you know, people take trips and go on vacations or tourist things and go and see them, and they walk away floored, right? I've seen a lot of people go to Dubai and they go to Dubai and they come back and like, yo, there's nothing like it on the planet. You gotta go once. It's nothing like it, right? But this was renowned all the world over. So imagine when we get back into our kingdom, as I said, as we just read in 2 Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, 22nd verse, when we regained the city and we built it and did certain things, what's that going to be like? What's it going to look like when Yahushua now is present and us as a nation are in our right minds to now go and rebuild and reorder things aright in the right manner? It's going to be even better than what we read in here, right? It's going to be on a higher level than this, because now we are going to be sinless, meaning we're not going to transgress. And the Most High said he had prepared certain things that our minds can't even conceive of. So you can just, whatever you think it is, whatever you had envisions of what it might look like or what we're going to, the Lord is going farther beyond that, right? So as we're reading this and we're seeing this image here, and again, this is just someone's interpretation of what this will look like, because there's different variations, right? There has to be a basin of sea. It has to be those 10 lavers. It has to be, those cherubims that's inside of the holiest of holies. But this is just an adaptation, not the actual. So we can just now add on to what that's going to be like in the kingdom. So now going back and picking back up in 1 Kings chapter 7 and 31, it says, and the mouth of it within the chapiter and above was a cubit, but the mouth thereof was round after the work of the base, a cubit and a half, and also upon the mouth of it were gravings with their borders 4 square, not round. And under the borders were 4 wheels, and the axle trees of the wheels were joined to the base, and the height of the wheel was a cubit and a half a cubit. And the work of the wheels was like the wheel of a chariot wheel. Their axle trees and their naves and their pillows and their spokes were all molten. And there were 4 undersetters to the 4 corners of one base, and the undersetters were of the very base itself. And in the top of the base was there a round compass of a half a cubit, and on the top of the base the ledges thereof and the borders thereof were of the same. So this is getting into the intricate things that was now also, you see on the sides there, certain things, go back out. That was also structured. You see the altar that's there in front when he did the offerings. So all of these are all the additional things that was done within the courts of the actual temple that Solomon built, right? A little bit different from what was done with the tabernacle that was in the wilderness when Moses and Aaron had it, right? Solomon is now creating all these other different structures to go with it. Aaron and Moses didn't have that basin with graven oxen and things like that. This is what Solomon added as an addition to the structure that his father started with the inspiration to build, and then he completed it. Pourquoi?
I'm saying, even when you see all this intricate design of this artwork, and as opposed to sometimes the Most I said, okay, let me tell you what this thing needs that is designed. Now, because it is not given, you have men that go and put their own a spin on it. Say, okay, I see. Do you know what that means right there? You see that pole right there? You got this in it. Mm-hmm. Now, people who are curious wants to know, they're gonna sit in front of these people and then start to take all that information in, and then they be being deceived, right? And to think that they got the secrets, right? And that's pretty much, what is not being said here is not important to us. It's important to the Most High. So Hiram did not even, break everything down. He was just at the inspiration, he putting them down. But you have people who go to the temple, like Solomon was a basin. Let me break down all these things for you and what it means.
Right. So some things will get understanding for. Some of them are symbolic, like the 10 lavers or the basins that's on outside, That's where the priests actually went and washed themselves before they went and did the actual service. So you had 10 head, and you had different priests that had different services within the circuit, within the holy place, right? Or within the court. That's where they washed themselves. But that was an order that they had to purify, wash themselves before going in and doing certain things. But then, yeah, you know, things written aforetime was for our learning. Then you also know that when you read in Colossians, it says that these are a shadow of things to come. Meaning, as some of these things that was done also, you know, on a low level during Moses and Aaron's time, that was told to them to do it by the Most High, but it would have or take upon itself a more spiritual connotation moving forward, right? That's the key that we want to learn from. How the Most High open up our hearts and our minds to see these things that's in the law and what it really means or how it is applied to us, right? Again, some things are actual just carnal things that we needed to use to do the service of the Most High for the sacrifices or what have you, but other things would then carry on a spiritual meaning as we move forward. All right. I think I left off in verse, was it 35? I'll read that. It says, "In the top of the base was there a round compass of half a cubit high, and on the top of the base, the ledges thereof and the borders thereof were of the same. For on the plates of the ledges thereof and on the borders thereof, he graved cherubims, lions, and palm trees, according to the proportion of every one, and additions round about." I think when I went through this last time, I brought up images of what they had on the inside. And you can see on the inside of the temple, you'll see the palm trees there. You see other different artwork that's also inside on the walls of the temple. Is the same thing that was now being done outside. The cherubims, the lions, the palm trees. So this was the decorative work that was carved onto these objects, onto these walls, and then they were overlaid with gold, right? It says in verse 37, "After this manner, he made the 10 bases. All of them had one casting, one measure, and one size. Then made he 10 levers of brass, one lever containing 40 baths, and every lever was of 40 cubits, and upon every one of the 10 bases, one laver," right? So each water contained about 40 baths worth of water. Whereas when we read about the sea, it said it had, was it 2,000? Can't recall. Right? It was I think it was 2,000 when we read it further up. But now it's just giving you the actual measurement of how much water was going to be actually held in the molten sea, as well as the 10 lavers that was going to be round about. So that's why you see the water proportions that's in there. It says in verse 39, "And he put 5 bases on the right side of the house and 5 on the left side of the house. And he set the sea on the right side of the house eastward over against the south. And Hiram made the lavers and the shovels and the basins." So Hiram made an end of doing all the work that he made for King Solomon for the house of the Lord. The 2 pillars and the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were on the top of the pillars, and the 2 networks to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters which were upon the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates for the 2 networks, even 2 rows of pomegranates for 1 network to cover the 2 bowls of the chapiters that were upon the pillars. Now, I'm not going into the actual detail for each one, right? The chapiters and go and see how it looked, the network, and how that was in concert to the other things. You know, for some of us who are inquisitive or want to get into the details, you know, Spirit have it where you can go and really go and get, you know, your compact Bible dictionary, use this tool that we have, Google, and go and pull up different images and correlate them together to kind of give you a broader visual picture of how all these intricate things that Solomon created back then work, right? It says in verse 43, and the 10 bases and the 10 lavers on the bases, and 1 sea, and 12 oxen under the sea, and the pots and the shovels and the basin, and all these shovels which Hiram made the King Solomon for the house of the Lord were of bright brass, right? So these weren't gold. What you see out there was all made of brass, not dark brass, bright brass, polished so that it would shine when you looked at it. Sometimes you'll have certain brass that's shining that may look like gold, but for the purpose of what it is, you don't need it to be gold, right? So you have certain metals for certain purposes.
Also, Hiram had the skill, but Solomon gave all the instruction on what to do, as far as, the layout, everything, how it's supposed to be done.
Correct.
Just like Moses and Azalea, Goliath, back at the time of the Exodus.
So reading on at verse 46. In the plain of Jordan did the king cast them, in the clay ground between Succoth and Sarathan, right? So Hiram created and made all these things and brought and delivered them to King Solomon, and he laid them all out in this plain between these two areas. Verse 47, and Solomon left all the vessels unweighed because they were exceeding many. Neither was the weight of the brass found out, right? So sometimes you go and you attend to the detail of the things that someone who's a contractor, because in this sense, Hiram is like viewed as a contractor. He's the one that's going out there doing the work. So he goes and does all this stuff in his own shop or his own area, and then he delivers them, because we read before that he said they was going to bring them down by the sea, right? And Solomon was going to tell them where to actually drop them off at. So they got it and they laid everything out, right? So now with weights and measures based on certain metals, you will be able to determine like, I think you skimped on this is too light, or this too heavy to be, all gold. Gold ain't this heavy, right? You done did something else here. So certain things he didn't weigh because it was just too much stuff that he had out there. He just went off the trust that Hiram and the team that he had with him did according to detail.
Plus, almost everything inside was pretty much done with that metal.
Right.
So there was no need because it was
right.
too much.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that Moses Sea, it's like, man, who's going to go want to weigh that and go and weigh all these other different things? So it was just too much. He said, you know what? We'll just leave it as is. Verse 48, and Solomon made all the vessels that pertain unto the house of the Lord, the altar of gold and the table of gold, whereupon the showbread was, and the candlesticks of pure gold, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left. And before the oracle with the flowers and the lamps and the tongs of gold, and the bowls and the snuffers and the basins and the spoons and the center of pure gold, and of the hinges of gold, both for the doors of the inner house, the most holy place, and for the doors of the house, to wit, of the temple. So was ended all the work that King Solomon made for the house of Yahweh. And Solomon brought in the things which David his father had dedicated, even the silver and the gold and the vessels that he put among the treasures of the house of the Lord, right? So when you read back in 2 Samuel chapter 8, you'll see that King David also had himself, even though he couldn't build his temple, he had set aside certain vessels and dedicated them for the purpose of the temple and left it up, right? So now even after his transition, and now the temple is built some years later, Solomon goes back and gets that and also brings that into the treasure house of the Lord. So you got gold spoons and this and shovels and all that was needed to do the work or the service that the priest was doing for the Most High, right? So all these things was gold, right? They're doing the sacrifice out there with the altar, right, for the burnt offerings, and now you got to put the coals and stuff on there. You get a shovel, it's a pure gold shovel. You got certain tongs, the tongs to put certain on the altar, and you go grab that, oh, that's gold, right? So it was decked out with precious metals and stones, right, costly stones, and then the artwork and the detail that was done with these was on a high level, right? So it all kind of made the magnificence of what we wanted to represent for the Most High on a high level. And based on what we read in Maccabees, it definitely met its mark because it was renowned the world over. So much so that over time, the nations would pillage it, right? The nations would come in and pillage and steal these things from out of the temple once they came and they conquered us, right? Those menorahs that's in there right now, after Ezra rebuilt the temple, after the Babylonians destroyed it, he went and put those things back in there. And then you see on the Ark of Titus, during the times of when the Romans came to destroy the temple in 70 AD and beyond, that was one of the things they took one of the menorahs out, right? That gold menorah was taken out, probably sitting somewhere, maybe in the Vatican, right? Down in a bunker somewhere or somewhere in Great Britain, right? There's a lot of precious artifacts that have been taken or stolen over the centuries that's still in their presence, right? They still have them, but they just have them hidden and locked away. I remember when I went years ago to a museum in Berlin. They have a place called Museum Island, and I went there because this guy that was from Turkey, he told me that the Germans had stolen a lot of the archaeological artifacts from Turkey and put it in that museum, right? Some was supposed to have been borrowed temporarily, and they just never returned them. So he was like, yeah, you know, like the borrow that's in Exodus, when we said we borrow from the Egyptians, they took them, right? And they just never returned them. But I went there to go and see because they had certain artifacts from different periods. The Assyrian Empire, they had certain things, certain areas that was just dedicated to that, so you can go and see the archaeological findings of that. Then they had certain things from the times of the Greeks, right? They said they had a whole section of what was supposed to have been the altar abomination of desolation, which I was intrigued, like how the heck did they, what did they have as far as for that? Because we went and cleaned that up and eradicated it. So I was curious to see what they were going to have, but it was an empty area. They kind of had all the writings in relation to what you read in the scriptures, but there was nothing there, and it was roped off. So what that told me was kind of like they do have some of these things that they just don't want to put on display because it would, you know, offer up more questions about certain things. Now they might put the chalice of Yahushua out somewhere, like, yeah, we got the chalice of Yahushua that he ate at the Last Supper, right? And it's, you know, and everybody going to go there and take pictures and be in awe. And most likely that's just a hoax. That's just hype.
Even when the queen died, they said, "Oh, those stones, you know, crown belong to this country and that country, and so on and so forth." You know, in the British.
Right. Shalom, Khan. I think you will read something like that. I think it started back in Exodus, the 30th chapter, where the priests had to wash themselves, and that was their order or their service. They had to continue that office. All right, so now we're going to jump into 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, as they have concluded making the finishing up the work for the temple and the houses that was created by Solomon, his heathen wife, and other things, right? So now we're about to get into the actual dedication of the temple. So this is 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 1. It says, "Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel," right? So like we read, we was going through the new moon, and it talks about the prince shall go and do certain things. So when you get into the heads of the tribes of the chief of the fathers of Israel, these are like those princes, right? These chief men, right, are the ones who have now been nominated to now perform the certain service, whether it is an authoritarian service to now go and make certain decisions, or to carry out certain works for the service of the Most High, not being a Levite. These men of all the other tribes had that responsibility. I'm gonna read it again. "Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto King Solomon in Jerusalem, that they might bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is in Zion. Right. So while the temple was being built, right, when we took the ark back from the Philistines, it dwelt in the city where David was dwelling at that time, which was Zion or Jerusalem. Right. So now they need to take it and bring it to the actual location of where the temple is standing. And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month of Ethanim, which is the 7th month that we just came out of, where we kept the memorial blowing of the trumpets for the new moon, where we kept the Day of Atonement, where we kept the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So during this feast in the 7th month, most likely it's probably during the times of the Feast of the Tabernacles, is where they're having this this gathering, right? It says, and all the elders of Israel came, and the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark of Yahweh and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle, even those did the priests and the Levites bring up, right? So before we had the temple, we had a tabernacle, right? It was a tabernacle of testimony or different names, and that's where we would do our office or services for the Most High. But now Solomon has all of that come to the city of David, or come out of the city of David to this place, because now we're about to offer up sacrifice and do the dedication for this new temple. And King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him were with him before the ark, sacrificing sheep and oxen that could not be told, nor numbered for multitude, right? So that's the vast numbers, like how the nation of Israel, we can't be numbered. That's how much cattle was out there that day to offer up sacrifices, you know, for the Most High. Because you got to imagine, you got all these cattle running around, they just taking them aside. It's going to be hard to go out there and number thousands and thousands of cattle, right? It's just giving you the perspective that it was a large amount of sacrifices that was done. And I always say, when it comes into just the sacrifices that was done for the Most High, when we read about how the Most High was going to bless us with the land that flowed with milk and honey, right? So it's not literal that the land is going to, like how you have a fountain and the fountain is going to be milk flowing down. It's just going into how surplus the things would be, right? For the land to flow with milk and honey, you have to have a lot of agriculture and grass and things for the cattle, whether it be goats, right, regular cows, lamb, whatever, to go and graze on, so that they can go and produce the milk, right? Look at how many we're talking about here. It's a numerable amount. So that's a lot of cattle that the Most High has blessed the children of Israel to just do for the portion of the sacrifice. Not even for what the people would have to eat, right? This is just for the sacrifice, and it couldn't be counted. When you read in the book of First Esdras in the Apocrypha, and you go into the Passover, it's the same thing. When you start counting how much Josiah brought, then the chamberlains and people that was under Josiah, how much they was offering for the purpose of the Passover. That didn't even go into what Israel was just doing on their own. So for us to have that surplus amount just to do for specific holy days or for specific events, and would not eat into what we would have as far as for just the normal or ordinary day, it goes into how the Lord blessed us as a nation, that we would be surplus to have enough resources, to have enough for the cattle, to have enough to drink or eat, right? To get the clothing, because you took the cattle and you took the sheep, the skins and things to make clothing, or to make, you know, your dwelling places, right? So it just goes into it figurative for how the Most High would make us very prosperous, to have surplus resources that we can get through our day-to-day, not only just for the priest, but for us as a nation in general, right? There's scriptures that goes into all the different types of fruits and things that the Most High would give us in the land of Israel, and how it would be surplus, right? I'll probably get that a little bit later on.
And also, like when people read, when the Most High said, I desire obedience and not sacrifice, that has to be taken into context of why he said it, right? And the Most High wants those sacrifices for his sweet sake. right? The Most High, that's why we still gotta have sacrifices, because that's what the Most High desires. So he wants us to smell the savor of the sacrifice, of what he blessed us with, right? Because people would say, oh man, he said he does desire sacrifice, but when you read it in context, when we don't do what we do, we sin, and then we have to take it and try to present sacrifice. The Most High don't desire that. You have to come clean and do it what you're supposed to be doing. Then the Most High will take pleasure in the sweet savors.
Karnabia.
It kind of also what I'm bringing out. That's the point. It's when we talk about as far as, you know, doing right and wrong, doing well and better. It's not like a equal situation, right? More of both, right? To come to class point where it's like, how you gonna put the one over the other? Anything you want to be doing the sacrifices, like you said, doing it in the right spirit. It's like, why are you doing the sacrifice? You go from emotion so that you can go back to doing your goodness. So a lot of times the obedience part, it's like the obedience part, the spirit when it comes to being in the right spirit when you're keeping the law, which Israel kind of lost sight of, but then we're reminded of when Christ came. He showed us, you know, the grace and truth that goes with the law that Moses gave.
And when we read what God did when he told him to kill all the animals, including all the Amalekites, that's what he said at the time, right? He didn't do that. Moses said, yeah, you take those animals from me to sacrifice, but that's not what I told you to do, right? Do exactly what I told you to do when I tell you to do it. That's where the obedience comes in.
Was that 1 Samuel 15?
Right.
1 Samuel 15, is it 21? 24. No, 21. Yeah, actually the main verse is 22, where it says 1 Samuel 15:22, and Samuel said, have the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Right? So the Most High wants us to have a contrite spirit where we're just obedient to his instruction, right? And not have to come and always make supplication because we just continually want to go and break his commandment. He wants us to just have some integrity and sincerity to just do what he wants us to do. Not always apologize for not doing it. So now reading on, back in 1 Kings chapter 8, and where did I leave off? Verse 3 now. Salat. Verse 6. It says, and the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place, into the oracle, for the holiest of holies, of the house, to the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubim spread forth their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves, that the ends of the staves were seen out into the holy place before the oracle, and they were not seen without. And there they are unto this day. Right? So at the time when this was written, that's where it dwelt. Right? We know it's not there unto this day, because we know based on what we read in First Maccabees, the second Maccabees, the second chapter, the Ark of the Covenant was hidden before the Babylonian captivity came upon us by Jeremiah the prophet into the mountain, right? It was a Mount Nebo, right? That was hidden there, and it's hidden in a manner where no one else could mark the path. And it's not going to be resurfaced or found until the children of Israel come back to our homeland, right? But for right now, that's what it was dwelling at. Verse 9, there was nothing in the ark save the two tables of stone which Moses put there at Horeb when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt, right? So at this time during King Solomon's reign, that's the only thing that was in the Ark of the Covenant, was the 2 tablets or the 2 tables of stone that was written with the finger of the Most High of the commandments, right? But we know today that's not the only thing that's inside of the Ark of the Covenant. Over time, Spirit will have it where other things will be also placed in the Ark before it was hidden. Write down Hebrews chapter 9. Hebrews chapter 9. And verse 4. Hebrews 9 and 4 says, which had the golden censer and the Ark of the Covenant overlaid round about with gold, wherein was the golden pot that had manna, and Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant, right? So this is going into the Ark of the Covenant and what was laid therein. So these 3 things, the golden pot that had manna, Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant. You can explicitly say it's 4 because it was 2 tablets. But those are the things that's laid inside that's now hidden in the mount based on where Jeremiah had placed it based upon the Spirit of the Most High.
That's trivia.
Always. Right. Always. It's be one of those things you say, Kush, since you got it, what's in it? You know, Kush always claimed that they got the Ark of the Covenant lying, right?
Or you quiz somebody, okay, what are the 3 things and what are each their significance in the history?
Gun. Like I said, I'm wondering, you know, because it says the pot that had the manna. You know me, I'm always that manna, man. So on a high level, that's all I need is that manna. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right. So now, 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 10. It says, and it came to pass when the priests would come out of the holy place that the cloud filled the house of the Lord, right? So when the priests came out after bringing in the ark, then the cloud came down and filled the house of the Most High, right? When it's talking about a cloud, it's talking about what we call today a chariot or wheel within wheels, or the vessels where the Most High's angels travel, right, throughout the different heavens, right? You can write down Exodus chapter 13. Turn.
You said about the manna, right? You know, that we had in the Old Testament. So it's not like saying, oh, Esau did an artwork. He took a banana and he taped it onto a wall, and that's like $450,000, you know? And somebody went to the banana and took it off and ate the banana. So it's like, it goes to artwork. It's like nobody had access to even touch it, you know, able to touch it.
Right.
Or able to probably even take those things out. You just can't go in that.
Right. I mean, we read or I've read where you know how the Lord cursed the Philistines when they took the ark and it was sitting up in their temple with their false god, and how the Lord destroyed their god and knocked their god over in the temple, and then they plagued them.
Yeah.
Right. The Most High began to plague them with hemorrhoids and other things. But these are sacred things, right? The tablets, right? That's sacred because it was something that was a foundational artifact as pertains to the law, right? Those 10 laws that the Lord started off with was now engraved. Just to know that the Lord had the Spirit where He engraved that. It wasn't something that He took a pen or scroll and wrote it in. That was a testimony for us. So, yo, we got this directly from the Most High, right? That's in there. And then we got the food or the vessel that contained the food. Then when the Most High had it where the Lord was going and dealing with the Egyptian and magician with Aaron's rod and how it budded, you know, And that rod was used for different purposes, but it budded with flowers to show you how the Lord can change anything in something different from outside of his normal purpose. That was put in there as a testimony for when we came out of Egypt, right? What the Lord used and Moses and Aaron as our guides and our kings and leaders at that time. So now we at 1 Kings 8. And I was going to Exodus chapter 13. Exodus chapter 13 and verse 21. It says, and Yahweh, or the Lord, went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud, right? So that's what we're reading here, that the cloud filled the house of the Lord, right? It says, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. So in the day, this pillar or this vessel was there as a cloud to us. And it guided us throughout the wilderness, guided us through the Red Sea and throughout the wilderness for a period of time. And then at night, as we're walking through the wilderness, imagine going to, like, sometimes if you've ever driven through a deserted area where there's no street lights, and the only thing you got your headlights, right? You need something to guide you to the path. So in the wilderness, when we was wandering about, the Lord's chariot would now cast down that fire or those beams of light onto the earth so that we can see where we're going and provide that light in the night, right? It says in verse 22, he took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So that was what we was privy to while we was wandering the wilderness. The chariot was there. It was our guide. It wasn't coming to suck the water out of the earth or do all these things that some of these movies and cartoons and things depict, and then changes the minds of our people from a young adolescent age. Because you start watching cartoons from 4, 5, and 6, and 9, and 10, and you start believing these things, then you become, as an adult, it's ingrained in you, right? That these are foreigners or enemies to the earth, to everyone here. Watch Superman and all the different types of the Marvel comics and DC, and they put these types of propaganda messages in the shows, and it makes people believe something different than what the Lord's inspirational spirit has for these things. So now 1 Kings 8 and 10 again. And it came to pass when the priests were come out of the holy place that the cloud filled the house of the Lord. The priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord had filled the house of the Lord, right? So now the cloud descended upon the chariot. So it might have been high up, and then all of a sudden it comes down and descends right into the temple. So the priests were afraid they could not go in and minister because it was right there. It filled the temple. Then spake Solomon, the Lord said, then spake Solomon, the Lord said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. I have surely built thee an house to dwell in, a settled place for thee to abide in forever. And the king turned his face about and blessed all the congregation of Israel, and all the congregation of Israel stood. So the Lord dwells, as it says, in the thick darkness, out there beyond what we see as far as for outer space, right? It's beyond our comprehension in this plane, from where we are in this heaven, to just go and see. No satellite, right? You ain't sending no rocket. You ain't sending none of these things to go. You know, Esau probably tries to go and try to search out the dwelling place of the Most High power and the angels, right? Or the spirits that have now transitioned from this plane. So you can't see it. He's out in the thick darkness. But Solomon wanted to now have this temple for the Most High to dwell here on earth. Now, the Lord had already told David, when you read in 2 Samuel, the 7th chapter, that it's impossible for the Most High to physically dwell here on earth, right? He can't go and dwell in an actual building. Like, come on, right? The Lord said the earth is like a footstool to him, right? So how can this be the actual dwelling place? It wouldn't be the dwelling place. It would be the sanctuary, a place where we would now offer up our offerings and do the service of the will of the Lord, and the Most High would be receptive or accepting of our offerings or our service. That's what the intent of the temple was. It was like our go-between between us and the Most High, As we sinned or we brought offerings and certain things, we would bring that to the priest and it would go to the upkeep of the temple. Verse 14. And he said, blessed be the Lord power of Israel, which spake with his mouth unto David my father, and have with his hand fulfilled it, saying, since the day that I brought forth my people Israel out of Egypt, I chose no city out of all the tribes of Israel to build an house, that my name might be therein. But I chose David to be over my people Israel. And it was in the heart of David my father to build an house for the name of Yahweh power of Israel. And the Lord said unto David, my father, whereas it was in thine heart to build an house unto my name, thou didst well that it was in thine heart. Nevertheless, thou shalt not build thy house, but thy son that shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house unto my name. So it was the Lord, was pleased to hear that David thought of him, right? To say, hey, you want to build me a house? Nothing wrong with that, but David couldn't do it because of blood on his hands, because he was involved with war constantly, right? And at the time that David transitioned, or he would carry to the spirit world, he had defeated all his enemies so that there was peace amongst the nation of Israel. And that allowed Solomon to take the baton and carry that and go and build the temple. So that's why he couldn't build it. But the Most High acknowledged that it was well that he had that in his mind or his heart to go and do this service for the Lord. Verse 20. And the Lord hath performed his word that he spake, and I am risen up in the room of David my father, and sit on the throne of Yashar'Allah, as Yahweh promised, and have built an house for the name of Yahweh power of Yashar'Allah. Right? So now it's completed, now it's done. It says, I have set there a place for the ark, wherein is the covenant of the Lord, which he made with our fathers when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. Right? So when he's talking about the covenant of the Lord, it's talking about the actual tables of stone, because it is the law. That was our agreement, that we would keep his commandments and he would be our power or our God as much as we kept up the agreement. So the covenant, the agreement, the tablets is in the ark, which is now placed in the holiest of holies. Oh, yeah. I just noticed it too, that you said it. So now we have verse 20. So about 21. He says, and I set there a place for the ark, wherein is a covenant of the Lord, which he made with our fathers, where he brought them out of the land of Egypt. And Solomon stood before the altar of the Lord in the presence of all the congregation of Israel, and spread forth his hands toward heaven. Right? So now here's the beginnings of the prayer of the dedication of this temple to the Most High on behalf of Israel. It says, and he said, Lord, power of Israel, there is no power like thee in heaven above or on earth beneath, who keepest covenant and mercy with thy servants that walk before thee with all their heart, who has kept with thy servant David my father, that thou promised him, that thou spakest also with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. Right? To keep those who was of the loins of David upon the throne, and allowing Solomon to go and build out this temple. It says in 25, therefore now, Yahweh power of Israel, keep with thy servant David, my father, that thou promised him, saying, there shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit on the throne of Israel, so that thy children take heed to their way, that they walk before me as thou hast walked before me. Right? To carry on that tradition. As David was set up and established by the Most High, to now allow that to carry on throughout the generations. But we know at some point that the Most High was fed up with Israel. The curses had to now start to come take form, and the Most High had the Babylonians come and conquer us and take us into captivity. And that would be a series of captivities, and the line of kings would end, right? But this is what the Most High had promised David and carried on to Solomon. And the kingdom is going to pick back up, right? Verse 26, And now, O power of Israel, let thy word, I pray thee, be verified, which thou spakest unto thy servant David my father. But will God indeed dwell on earth? Behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have built it, right? Same thing that was foretold to David. Now Solomon comes to the wisdom that it's impossible that literally or physically the Most High would dwell. If the heavens and the heavens of heavens can't contain the Most High, how is this small vessel here called the temple going to contain the Lord? So that's not the purpose of the temple, to have a room and a bed where the Most High can come and sleep and eat in there. That's not the purpose or intent, right? You have the falsehoods of these other nations where they'll bring in offerings and things like you read about Bel and the Dragon. They'll bring in certain foods and they'll make it as if their false god is eating these things, right? Most High is not coming down and actually eating the showbread or drinking the wine, or as the priest, burn the offerings on the altar for the burnt offering, that he comes down and he actually takes a piece. No, right? Yeah, right. These are all ceremonious for the Most High. He can smell in the savor of our offerings and it become accepted to him, but it's not like he's becoming man and dwelling on the earth to partake of a carnal structure. But it says in verse 28, yet have thou respect unto the prayer of thy servant and to his supplication, O Lord, my power, to hearken unto the cry and to the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee today, that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place. Right? So the Most High would have his eye there on the place or the city of Jerusalem, or the actual temple, right? To be accepted of the offerings and the service that we would do in honor of the Most High. That the Lord would always show favor to that, right? We want the Most High to say, be accepted and say kun or la'ah. The Most High has said la'ah, you got to destroy that and go do something else. Like the Most High don't want that. So it was just looking to get confirmation that the Most High was pleased with what David and Solomon had inspired to do.
Right. I was thinking when you bringing this out, how just thinking about both sides, we can only imagine. And the closest we can get to the Most High is to Yahushua. Like if you were to take the image of man, that's pretty much what it would look like, to Yahushua. But Most High is way. You cannot even put your finger on it.
Right.
Like even when he says he likes to dwell in thick darkness. Just that alone, that don't mean that he actually stay in a place. In that verse itself is way bigger. And if you're gonna try to capture it into your own imagination, you're just not gonna get it. Like for example, let me get that scripture. It's in Psalm 18 and verse 11. Psalm 18 and verse 11 read, he made darkness his secret place, his pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the sky. Now if you read that and you don't read it in context, man, what that means? Right? Because it's like when things are really bad, the Most High actually magnify and show that there's nothing that can be hit on. Like honest to that scripture is Psalm 97 and verse 2. Psalm 97 and verse 2 reads, clouds and darkness are round about him. Righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. Now, if anything full circle, it shows you what he means by, by he made darkness and round about him. Clouds and darkness are round about him. Some might even think it's like little clouds and darkness. But when you read, when it says righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. So which means it's not really the physical thing that is instructed. It's just like righteousness is pretty much his throne.
Right.
Psalm 97 too.
It's like when you read Job 26.
So we can't put the Most High in a box. We can't put him in a city. We can't. The Most High is way, way beyond that.
I always like the way this is worded because it goes into the power of the Lord, right? It's Job 26:7. It says, He stretcheth out the north over the empty place and hangeth the earth upon nothing. Right? So the place where we dwell, when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's just there in space hanging on nothing. Right? Like there's nothing, there's no string on the top of it. There's no foundation like how for all the flat earthers, because it has to have a base, right? It can't hang on nothing. It can't just sit there in outer space. What's holding it up? There's no string, right? You start going into the actual elements and the forces. That's too far beyond the comprehension of man. So Job and them, they just worded it, the Lord hangeth the earth upon nothing, right? The moon is in concert with the earth. The sun is in concert with the earth. And then you have the other stars and things that's out there. The Most High just has that. So when you look at just the second heaven, that's still unexplainable. You didn't even get to the third heaven to kind of comprehend where the Lord's actual dwelling place is. And so we can't even explain a lot of things that happened on the first heaven or on this plane. We're still trying to understand that. So the Lord's grandeur and how he, has ordered things in their perfect harmony, that's going to be when in the kingdom. There's more questions that we have for Yahweh Shah about, certain specific events. We'll be good in the law, but we might want to have more details on certain things that the Lord will reveal to us in the spirit at His will.
Yeah, and then we're kind of talking about that at camp last Sabbath. The brother always comes towards the end last couple times, like about how we're made and how we're like different compared to like all of the creation. So even like having a body, like with our face, our hair, our shoulders, our arms, like it's not to be taken lightly. Just our shape. And even on the left hand side, I can get into this, but kind of going deep in with this what we call sacred geometry, as far as like how things are set up in nature, and I think they're kind of like mathematically related, but they call it the golden ratio. Into that, they go into even the body have a certain design, but like I said, they're kind of scratching that with the Most High to give a full, complete understanding, which is we're made after the likeness. So it has a physical and a spiritual kind of component, and both have their place. So even the Most High, like having a body and sitting down, that's not even to look past. That's something to consider. He actually has a body. He's not just some all the energy that's just going through things. You know what I mean?
26:7, I think it was. Fact check it, 26:7, Joe, just in case. All right, so let's pick back up. We at verse 29. It says that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place. Right. So now we know, because we're reading about the temple and how Solomon is dedicating his temple, and he wants us to pray toward or have the Most High have his eye on that temple. But we know today the temple is destroyed. There's no temple there physically in the land of Egypt. In the land of Israel. So now, if this was a place that he was supposed to have his eye to now hear our prayer, and there's no temple, does that mean that the Most High doesn't hear our prayers because the temple ain't there no more? Because this was the dedication, right? That's why it means more when we read in the book of Hebrews, right? When we read in Corinthians 3:16 that we become the temple, right? The Most High's eyes on us now, right? Not on the physical building. Romans 12:1, we now do the sacrifice and the offerings that the priests would do in the temple. We now do them on our daily works. That's when the Most High now is just going to keep his eye on Israel, keep his eye on Jerusalem, right? This was done in the city, Jerusalem. But remembering, we are called Jerusalem wherever we go, right? So the Lord will have his eye on us, right? That's where sometimes people get caught up in, oh no, we're not in the land no more. Oh no, we don't have that no more. We can't. No, we are it, right? It was always about us before we even got to the land, right? We were doing the sacrifice and the offerings before we got to the land, in the land, outside of the land. The things are destroyed, so the Lord still has it where he had a perfect segue through Yahushua to allow these things to continue on and become on a higher level, right? So again, this is the back end of history where the Solomon is dedicating this to the Lord, but we know fast forward that it had taken shape on a higher spiritual level. So reading 29 again, that thine eyes may be open toward this house night and day, even toward the place of which thou hast said, my name shall be there, that thou mayest hearken unto the prayer which thy servant shall make toward this place. And hearken thou to the supplication of thy servant and of thy people Israel, when they shall pray toward this place, and hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and when thou hearest, forgive, right? So this is like an agreement between Solomon and the Most High, that if he was accepted of this house and he had his eye on this house, and we prayed toward this house because that's where the offerings and the priesthood will be done, and we prayed to the Lord for our sin of transgression, that the Most High would forgive us, right? Verse 31, if any man trespass against his neighbor, and an oath be laid upon him to cause him to swear, and the oath come before thine altar in this house, then hear thou in heaven, and do and judge thy servant, and condemning the wicked, to bring his way upon his head, and justifying the righteous, to give him according to his righteousness. So if someone breaches an oath and a person prays to you by way of this temple, make Most High, if you can now go and do justice to that man and condemn the wicked for what they've done with the breach. Quiet.
1 Corinthians 3:17.
3:17, you can start at 16.
First Corinthians 3 and verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwell in you? If any man defile the temple of the Most High, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. So when you look at it, we have a lot of temples being destroyed right here, right now, right? And today we don't even know it because a lot of us regard ourselves as the temple of the Most High. Sometimes you might see people being destroyed out there, and you wonder why. Most High has his head, because more than likely that person disregarded the temple of the Most High, and the temple was destroyed.
Con. So back in these verses, it pertains to oaths. We know that Christ gave us understanding in the New Testament, in Matthew, the 5th chapter, verses 37, 38, that when it comes to making oaths and forswearing ourselves, that we shouldn't do that, right? Because we don't have control over the day or tomorrow to guarantee that what it is that you are promising by binding yourself to it that you're going to be able to fulfill it. And if that happens, then the Most High has to, as we're reading here, go and judge between those two individuals, right? You swore that you was going to do this. You swore you was going to pay. You swore that you was going to be there, right? On the Most High's name, through your Yahushua, right? Or you swearing on your dead family members or your live daughters or what have you to try to validate that you're going to be able to fulfill what it may be. But Yahushua said, don't do that when you read Matthew chapter 5, 37, 38. He said, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. And then also, provided as the Lord's will. Lord's will, I'll be there. If it's the Lord's will, I'll show up tomorrow. If it's the Lord's will, you know, we can make this journey or something, right? Because who knows what may happen. You can get sick, right? And then you can't show up, right? And it's like, sorry, I know I was gonna be there. We're gonna go down to DC, but man, I got like the runs. I got a stomach problem. I got a headache. You can't make it. Now that brother's overseeing, like, man, you done swore and told me that you was gonna be here. Don't do that. Just say, listen, I try to be there. Most High's will, we'll get on there. Most High will see you tomorrow. Most High will see you next week, right? So who knows, something may come up. So don't bind yourself to oaths so that this would need to happen, right?
Oh, the verse to go along with that too. You guys read it. James chapter 4, 13 to 15. Real quick, it just says, James chapter 4, verse 13. Go to now, ye that say, there tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. 14. Whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanishes away. 15. For that we ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that.
Okay.
Also,
Lord's
Ecclesiastes 5 and 7.
Hold on. So just make sure everybody heard that. James chapter 4, verse 13 to 15 was the precepts that Kahan Abiyah just provided. Now you said what? Ecclesiasticus?
Chapter 5 and 7. And we all made the gift of it. It's like, make no tarry to turn to the Lord and put not off from day to day. For suddenly shall the wrath of the Lord come forth, and thy security that shall be destroyed and perish in the day of vengeance. And sometimes it's something that we're doing right now. I'll do it. I'll do it. Right? But right now is what you have control over. You have no control over tomorrow. Because tomorrow has a thing of itself that is, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof.
Mm-hmm.
So it's everything that you gotta do in the moment and do it, take the action to do it, as opposed to put it off for the next day.
Good precept. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So back in 1 Kings chapter 8 and verse 33, it says, when thy people Israel be smitten down before the enemy, because they have sinned against thee, and shall turn again to thee, and confess thy name, and pray, and make supplication unto thee in this house, then hear thou in heaven, and forgive the sin of thy people Israel, and bring them again unto the land which thou gavest unto their fathers. Right? So if this happens, and Israel repent, where we sinned, and you allow us to be taken down or smitten before our enemies, we repent and make supplication, ask for forgiveness, that the Most High would forgive our sins. He wouldn't, hold a grudge and be so angry with us that he would not hear our petition, but that he would forgive us and then deliver us from our iniquity and bring us back into the promised land. Verse 35, when heaven is shut up and there is no rain because they have sinned against thee, if they pray toward this place and confess thy name and turn from their sin when thou afflictest them, then hear thou in heaven and forgive thy sin of thy servants and of thy people Israel, that thou teach them the good way wherein they should walk, and give rain upon the land which thou hast given to thy people for inheritance. So it's like it's mentioned earlier, the Most High, through the sin or iniquity, can judge us in different manners, whether it be through famine, whether it be through pestilence, whether it be through captivity, right? When we're in these different circumstances and we recognize the error in our way, that we come back and we pray and we ask for forgiveness, that the Most High would be accepted of our prayer through the offerings or the things that was going to be done through that house, right? It says, verse 37, if there be in the land famine, if there be pestilence, blasting, mildew, locust, or if there be caterpillar, if their enemy besiege them in the land of their cities, whatsoever plague, whatsoever sickness there be, what prayer and supplication soever be made by any man, or by all the people, or by all thy people Israel, which shall know every man the plague of his own heart, and spread forth his hands toward this house. Then hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive and do and give to every man according to his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou, even thou only, knowest the hearts of all the children of men. So when you go into it, it's really not specifically about this temple. It's about just the Most High acknowledging that we are his people, and that within any circumstance, if we understand where we've fallen off and we have the integrity to come back with sincerity and pray to the Lord, that the Most High would hear our prayer, right? Well, all these things that you described, the caterpillar and the locust and the pestilence and all these things, are just ways that the Most High can plague us, right? Wherever we at. And we now have to be acknowledged. Same thing for the last day. There could be certain circumstances that we would befall ourselves, but the key here is that our heart is right with the Most High.
Connie, we were talking about that earlier in the service about going somewhere with fair weather, right? Try to get away from things. That's where I was I'm not sure who said it first, but the whole I was telling the folks that, especially that in the truth, or that may not like how things are in their particular region, they think by going somewhere else, you will start having easier for them. I was just saying, and don't forget, no matter wherever you go, where you are. So you need to bring the blessing with the curse with you wherever you go, even if it's a nicer setting.
Right. Verse 41, it says, moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people Israel. So, like, did I read 40? No, I didn't read 40. It says, verse 40, that they may fear thee all the days that they live in the land which thou gavest unto our fathers, right? It says, moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake, right? So now you're going to go into two different scenarios here, because it says in the previous verse that they that live in the land, right? Now you got people who are not dwelling in the land, who are not, within the confines of the land of Israel. Moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people, but cometh out of a far country for thy name's sake. For they shall hear of thy great name and of thy strong hand and of thy stretched out arm, when he shall come and pray toward this house. Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I have builded is called by my name, right? So we touched on this a bit before. I'm gonna get two scenarios. Exodus chapter 12 first. Exodus chapter 12. And 43. We usually go through this when we go through the Passover. Right? Because now we read about somebody who lives in the land, and now we get into the stranger that dwells afar off, that comes and dwells amongst us. So it says, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, right? So no stranger was supposed to eat of the Passover. Watch this, verse 44. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. So now if you have a slave that's bought, that's your possession, right? Him, he had to circumcise him, and then he can eat of the Passover. Hold, let's go to Genesis chapter 17. Genesis 17. And verse, I'm going to start at 10. Right? Genesis 17 and 10. It says, this is my covenant which he shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. Right? So we know that that was a covenant that started with Abraham, that went on down to his sons Isaac and Ishmael. Right? But then it says, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. So it's a token or a sign that we have this relationship with the Most High. So if we did this, we would be now still joined or in that agreement with the Lord. If we chose not to do it, then the Most High would now be upset with us. As you read later on in the storyline, when his wife came and said, you bloody man, right? Because he had to go and circumcise his son according to this agreement. Verse 12, watch this. It says, and he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. So now when you have someone of your household, of your seed, male child, he has to be circumcised. But now if you have a slave that's born in your household that you bought with money, and someone is born, he has to be circumcised because now he's your possession. So this is why it's stated in Exodus the 12th chapter, when we go back, and it states that no stranger shall eat thereof. You just can't have any regular person that's just going to come and eat. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. So he would be an actual heathen, but he's your possession. You bought him with money, right? This is in the law. Now it says in verse 45, a foreigner and a hired servant shall now eat thereof. So these is different. They're not bought with money. They're not your possession. They just regular heathen. They're now dwelling amongst you in there. I'm at verse 45 back in Exodus 12, right? They cannot eat thereof. So the Lord is making a distinguishing factor between these two types of individuals. Verse 46, in one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone of it. Right? That's spiritual because it goes into that the lamb was supposed to be made whole. You can't break the bones, supposed to be put on the altar. Same way Christ, no bone of Christ was supposed to be broken when he was offered as a sacrifice, being the Lamb of God. Right? He had to fulfill that as being our sacrifice or our offering. Verse 47, and all the congregation of Israel shall keep it. Now watch this. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, right? So we just read in the 43rd verse, there shall no stranger eat thereof, but this type of stranger, one that is a slave that's born with your money that you own. But now it says in 48, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, but no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. So now it's letting you know that this stranger is really not talking about the stranger that we read in 43. This is an Israelite that's not born in the land, right? He's far from a far country going out somewhere and he's coming back. Because if it wasn't, then there would be a direct contradiction. One says no hired servant, no stranger, you can't eat. Then you jump down to 48, and he says, okay, he can eat if he be circumcised, right? It's talking about two different situations here, right? So it's a stranger that's not in the land. That's what we read back over in our 1 Kings chapter 8, right? because now this person is coming and also is going to pray towards this place. So now let's go back there to 1 Kings 8 and 41 down to 43 again. 1 Kings chapter 8 verses 41 down to 43.
Where did you stop in Genesis 17?
I stopped. I think I stopped at 18.
Genesis 17,
10 down to 13. Right.
Everybody's writing it down.
Right.
That's gonna come up again.
Yeah. So now as we go back to 1 Kings 8:41, moreover concerning the stranger, matter of fact, I'm gonna start at 40. It says that they may fear thee all the days that they live in the land which thou gavest unto thy fathers. Moreover, concerning a stranger that is not of thy people, but cometh from out of a far country for thy name's sake. That's what we just read in Exodus, right? That's coming from a far country who's not dwelling in the land, right? It says, for they shall hear of thy great name and thy strong hand and how thy stretched out arm when he shall come and pray toward this house. Hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place, and do according to all that they stranger calleth to thee for, that all the people of the earth may know thy name, to fear thee as do thy people Israel, and that they may know that this house which I have built it is called by my name. Now go back to Exodus chapter 12. Go back to Exodus chapter 12. I'm going to finish up on 48 and 49, and I'm going to get the flip side, right? So this is Exodus 12 and 48 again. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, he's not dwelling in the land, he's not living there, will keep the Passover of the Lord, or to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come there and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Verse 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So someone who doesn't live here, he's now dwelling in Tyre, or he's dwelling over here in this area. It's the same thing. They got to all follow the same ordinance, right? Now, remember, we're reading about praying to this house. Now, if someone thought that this was really like the strangers would do this, they're still in order to how things have to be done, right? Go to the book of Genesis, chapter 20. Genesis chapter 20. And I'm going to read from Genesis 20. I don't want to read the whole storyline, but I'm going to read from 6. But the storyline is when Abraham and his wife Sarah journeyed into this area. This king Abimelech saw Sarah and desired her, right? And Abraham said that Sarah was his sister, so that he would not impose harm upon Abraham. And it caused this man Abimelech to go and seek out Sarah. But now the Most High came and seen and had a conversation with Abimelech in a dream, right? While he's sleeping. So now this is the conversation that the Most High has with this heathen king pertaining to his desires to have Sarah, Abraham's wife. I'm going to read from verse 6. And God said unto him in a dream, yeah, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thine heart, but I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, I know that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Right? So this man now has a visit by the Most High in his dream, the same way the Most High visits a lot of our prophets or righteous men and women. He'll go and visit the heathen, right, and make himself known to them. But now when the Lord checked Abimelech on what he was doing, he said, listen, you got to go and return that man his wife. He's a prophet. He's holy or sacred unto the Lord. Then what's going to happen? That man, Abraham, he's going to pray for you. Abimelech wasn't going to go pray for himself. Abimelech had to go to Abraham, and then Abraham was going to go to the Most High and pray for him, right? Now, the Lord just visited him. He could have just said, go return that man his wife, and then come and pray and make supplication unto me. But remember, the Most High has things in order. It's the nation of Israel supposed to be the top nation, or the people of the line of Shem was supposed to be the top people. At this time, Israel wasn't there. But Abraham was still one of those descendants of Shem, and he was now holy unto the Lord. So that man had to go to Abraham to pray to the Most High. But now let's get another example. Same thing. Go to Exodus. Go to Exodus, the 10th chapter. Exodus 10 and 16. So it says, then Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only, right? So here again now, as we are a nation of people, where Pharaoh acknowledges that he messed up with our God, right? But now he acknowledges that he messed up to our God, our power. He's not just going to go to the Most High. He now understands that he has to go through Moses and have Moses entreat the Lord or pray to the Lord that the Lord don't judge or jack him up, right? That's righteous order, where if we are the top nation, they have to come through us. They have to come through a man of God or the people of God in order to go entreat and pray to the Most High. Things have to be done in order. The same way you read in 1 Corinthians 11 chapter, where the Most High is the head of Christ and man is the head of the wife, well, we are destined to be the head of the nations, right? We're the head of the nations. The Most High has respect unto us. What is that? Exodus 4? Exodus 2. Right, let's get that. Exodus chapter 2, water. And verse 24 to 25. So Exodus 2, 24 and 25, it says, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham and with Isaac and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. Right? The Lord teaches us in the law not to have respect for persons, meaning to be partial in judgment. But the Most High is partial with us as a nation. He favors us as a people over all other nations, because we're supposed to be, as it states in Deuteronomy 7:6, above all nations, right? So just like the way the Most High has Yahushua be our advocate, right? Be our mediator, we would be the mediator or the advocate for the nations, right? They got to go through us in order. All right. You dropped something, Gabar. So let's go back to 1 Kings. We have verse 44 now. It says, if thy people go out to battle against their enemy, who is the enemy? The nations. Nehemiah chapter 5, verse 9. I think it's Exodus. You can write down Nehemiah 5 and 9. And then you can write down Numbers 24 and 8. Nehemiah 5 and 9, Numbers 24 and 8, as it talks about the nations or the heathen being the enemies of the Most High God or us as a people. It says, if thy people go out to battle against their enemy, whithersoever thou shalt send them, and shall pray unto the Lord toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house that I have built for thy name, then hear thou in heaven their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. If they sin against thee, there is no man that sinneth not. Right? So this is what they knew back then in the spirit. There was no man that sinneth not. Only save Yahushua that will come in the future. It's kind of why we went into those precepts this evening about being perfect or upright, right? With the Most High. You got to have that integrity sincerely to have the will and the desire to keep the laws of the Most High, to strive for perfection. So we all know that we sin in some way, shape, or form, but we still can be looked at as the unblemished, holy, right? Unto the Most High, even within the confines of us sinning here and there. It says, and thou be angry with them and deliver them to the enemy, so that they carry them away captives unto the land of their enemy far or near. Yet if they shall bethink themselves in the land whither they were carried captives, and repent, that's what we've done here in the Americas, North, Central, South. That's what we've done in Europe, right? All throughout that we are dwelling there. We've done in the Middle East, Africa, Asia, United Kingdom, the Pacific, right? Wherever we are for the four corners, it says, yet if they shall bethink, right? Examine, right? Meditate on the current state of your works and the things that you've done against the commandments of the Lord, and repent and make supplication unto thee in the land of them that were carried captives, saying, we have sinned and have done perversely, we have committed wickedness. And that's what all of us should have done, or have done already at some point in our lives when we came into this truth. We recognize, you start going back into the, the thing that you did when you was in high school, college, right? When you got out of college, or whatever it may be, whatever your point in life was when you came into the truth, and you look back and was like, oh, I never knew that. I never knew I shouldn't have done that. Or I never knew I was supposed to be doing this, right? We have sinned and committed wickedness. It says, and so return unto thee with all their heart, with all their soul, in the land of their enemies, which led them away captives, and pray unto thee toward their land, which thou gavest unto their fathers, the city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name. Then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in heaven, thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause, right? So even though the temple physically is not there, the place where the Most High chose to place his name in is the city Jerusalem. So that's why we still, when we do the congregation prayers, to face the east, face Jerusalem, right? Face that direction where that's our homeland. The temple is going to be rebuilt back again, but we now are the makeshift temples until that is accomplished, right? It says, verse 49, then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in heaven, thy dwelling place, and maintain their cause. And forgive thy people that have sinned against thee in all their transgressions, wherein they have transgressed against thee, and give them compassion before them who carried them captive, that they may have compassion on them. So put the spirit on even the enemy. Show a little bit of favor onto us that have now recognized the error in our way, right? That we don't continuously be beat down. Some of us have not seen the error in our way, and the Most High has certain judgments for them. But for those of us who do think ourselves, like it says in verse 47, and admit our transgression, that the Most High lends a little bit of compassion to us in these last days in the lands of our captivities.
Go up 46 about no man that sinneth not. Two verses you can connect with that. One is Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 20. So Ecclesiastes 7 and 20, it reads, for there is not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not. And then Romans 3:23, famous one by the so-called Christians. They like to quote this a lot as an excuse to not even try to keep the commandments. But the verse is true nonetheless. Romans chapter 3, in verse 23 reads, "For all have sinned, and come short of the glory of God."
And you could add First John 1 and 10 as well with those three.
Also, with regard to Musa have respect unto the children of Israel, you can write down 1:3, verse 7 to 10, where he even when we sin, he has mercy on us, whereas the other nation doesn't treat them like that. He doesn't treat them as sons or as his children. That's part of the have respect. He shows mercy, and he doesn't deal with us as he dealt with the other. He's gonna destroy Esau. He's not utterly destroyed, right? He will punish us. He's not gonna let us get away scot-free. He will punish us, but he will punish us in measure.
Okay. So call out your two again. I got Ecclesiastes 7:20.
And Romans 3:23.
Romans 3:23. Got that right down. Then I added 1 John 1:10. And then Psalms 103, 7 to 10. All right. So now reading on. Verse 51. It says, "For they be thy people and thine inheritance, which thou broughtest forth out of Egypt from the midst of the furnace of iron, that thine eyes may be open unto the supplication of thy servant and unto the supplication of thy people Israel, to hearken unto them in all that they call upon thee for. For thou didst separate them from among all the people of the earth to be thine inheritance, as thou spakest by the hand of Moses thy servant, when thou broughtest our fathers out of Egypt, O Lord, power." And it was so that when Solomon had made an end of praying all this prayer and supplication unto the Lord, he arose from before the altar of the Lord, from kneeling on his knees with his hands spread up to heaven. I think there's a class that I think it's been a while as far as for praying and the different manners that you read in the Bible as far as for how men prayed, right? You see Solomon got on his knees and lifted up his hands and did this prayer. Others would lay flat on the ground. Others would just be standing praying, right? You read about that in the New Testament. So there's different ways. There's not one specific thing that you have to do in order to pray. You could be in your car sitting there praying. You could be laying in your bed. You could be in your house somewhere in the back room praying, but it's not so much in the prostration. And sometimes you go into the symbolism behind the spreading forth of your hands, right? Because this is like submission. When you're out there in the street and an officer says freeze, right? You do this to show that you're submitting, that you have nothing to hide, right? If you like this, got your hands in your pocket, or you concealing, now it seems a little bit suspect, right? They may get you. So being, when the scriptures read and different precepts show that you spread your hand, it's a form of submission, and you're being clean and open with the Most High, right? But it's really about your heart and your mind being sincere in the prayer and in your petition for forgiveness for the Lord.
And it is also not always different forms speak to the Most High, just like a father. That's like a son talking to a father. Right? For any situation, anything possibly that you can ask your father, you gotta put it in the context of talking to the Most High the same way. Right? Supplication, end up when you mess up, talking to him about, I need this, I need that, and thank you. It's not always I need, we always go to the Most High when we need something. Even the Most High being great, anything for who he is and what he has done, chosen us. He could have chosen anybody else, but he chose the children of Israel. Anything that we talking to the Most High is a form of prayer.
Okay.
The Lord's Prayer that we talk about, I think you guys did a class on that, right? A couple classes, I think. I'm not sure how long it took.
I know. I did one. I think you did one you did the last one, I remember.
Yeah, but all those aspects you're talking about, they're all within that prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Break down that the whole Lord's Prayer goes into all of it.
Okay.
It's something not to take lightly.
Okay. Verse 55, it says, and he stood and blessed all the congregation of Israel with a loud voice, saying, blessed be the Lord that hath given rest unto his people Israel according to all that he promised. There have not failed one word of all his good promise, which he promised by the hand of Moses, his servant. So what the Most High has promised or said that he was going to do something for the nation of Israel or for a certain period, nothing failed, right? King Solomon saying this here. Joshua, I think, referenced the same thing back in the book of Joshua, chapter 21. Joshua chapter 21. Right. Joshua 21 verses 43 to 45. So Joshua 21 and 43, it says, and the Lord gave unto Israel all the land which he sware to give unto their fathers, and they possessed it, and they dwelt therein. And the Lord gave them rest round about according to all that he sware unto their fathers. And there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. There failed not aught of any good thing which the Lord had spoken unto the house of Israel. All came to pass, right? So it's just reiterating when the Most High promises or says that, puts out the word that something's going to be done. Man, the Most High is not like man where he'll go back on his word. No, it's going to be fulfilled, right? You can also write down Isaiah chapter 55 and verse 11. Isaiah 55 and 11. Which reads, it says, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. Right? So the Lord's word don't go out void, meaning it's not going to accomplish its intentions. It's always going to fulfill the Lord's mission.
46 and 10, Isaiah 2.
What does that say?
More or less.
Come. Isaiah 46 and 10 is another precept.
It's like the Most High is a perfect example of a father that never felt that his responsibility, his duty, his promise. We the one did that messed up, but he never, reneged and failed to do or take responsibility for what he promised.
Come. That's like what it says in Hebrews, the 8th chapter. It says, for finding fault with them, Hebrews 8 and 8. For finding fault with them, he said, behold, the days come, said the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah. So it wasn't something that he did. It wasn't something that the law did. It was us. We the one that breached or broke the agreement or didn't stand up to our word. Right? The Lord said what he said. He says, It's going to always fulfill what he said. It's going to always go and do what he said it was going to do. But us, we say, yeah, Most High, we're going to do that. And all of a sudden, we was like, yo, look at that. What's that over there? What are they doing over there? What are they putting on their bodies? What are they eating? Right? We now went against what we just said we wouldn't do. Right?
Like sometimes as a father, you like, man, you know what? I ain't gonna do it. I said I was gonna do it. It's gonna mess up too much. I ain't gonna do it.
All right.
Like the Most High, even though we heard him, he still holds part.
Yep. Yep. Verse 57. It said, the Lord our God be with us as he was with our fathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us, that we may incline our hearts unto him to walk in all his ways and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, which he commanded our fathers. And let these words, let these my words, wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant, the cause of his people Israel at all times, as the matter shall require, that all people of the earth may know that the Lord God is God, and that there is none else. Right? So that's the intention, that the Most High would show himself to all the heathen round about through us, right? That they will know that he is the Lord God. Joshua chapter 2. Joshua chapter 2. And verse 10.
That's what I've been early. Looking for the scripture. The Most High will show the heathen to us.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So Joshua chapter 2 and verse, actually I'm going to start at 9. It says, this is Rahab the harlot. She said unto the men, I know that the Lord hath given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you, when ye came out of Egypt, and what ye did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites that were on the other side Jordan, Sihon and Og, whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven above and in earth beneath. Right? So Rahab was there to acknowledge that they knew or was able to be mindful of the Most High because of what the Lord did with us. Right? Because of what he showed to us or did for us. That's how they now, or she and that family, was able to recognize that he is the power. So that's what will happen again, right? It's going to happen again. You read that in is it Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verses 1 all the way down to 8, right? When that day comes, when the Most High comes and delivers us again, right? It's going to be the same thing, that people are going to recognize and see the Most High and what he is doing for us, and how that now becomes the new talk of the town as far as for, wow, those Negroes, right? Those lazy guys, like all these proverbs and things and slander that they put upon us. They're going to say, now we recognize that it was you again, and here comes your God coming to defend you and redeem you. Right, and then they're gonna repeat the same things like Rahab the harlot had mentioned as well. So back in 1 Kings 8, in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5, verses 1 to 8.
Yeah. Straight.
Mm-hmm. So back in 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 61, it says, let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord our God. There it goes again, right? That upright perfect that righteousness, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments as at this day. And the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifice before the Lord. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto Yahweh, 22,000 and 120,000, no, 220,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord, right? So this was the first dedication of a temple, right? As far as for a ceremony was done by King Solomon. It says the same day did the king hallow the middle of the court that was before the house of the Lord. For there he offered burnt offerings and meat offerings and the fat of the peace offerings, because the brazen altar that was before the Lord was too little to receive the burnt offering and meat offering and the fat offering of the peace offering. And at that time Solomon held a feast, and all Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Egypt, before the Lord our power, 7 days and 7 days, even 14 days. So he had a 14-day feast or banquet in honor of the dedication of this temple, and everyone throughout this whole region, going down to the great river of Egypt, which is the Nile, all the way over to the entering in of Hamath. Everybody, all of us in those regions now kept this feast. It wasn't just in the city Jerusalem, it spread throughout all our dwelling places. Verse 66. And it says, on the 8th day he sent the people away, and they blessed the king and went unto their tents, joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness that the Lord had done for David, his servant, and for his people, and for Israel, his people, right? So it was a long time coming, the time it took to build that temple, to build the house of the forest of Lebanon, his heathen wife house, I'm saying it that way, his heathen wife's house, right? Daughter of Pharaoh of Egypt, but then all the other things as well, right? And that would be the beginnings, because it just didn't stop there. Because as much as the Most High put that spirit in Solomon, it then carried over to the rest of the nation of Israel, right? And that's what built up our prominence so much that as we read later on in the next upcoming chapters, how those people came to visit Israel and see the wisdom or hear the wisdom of Solomon, but also to see us and how we operate. You got people today, they go and vacation or travel to certain places to see how these things are set up. Like we mentioned, the Taj Mahal or this place here, the Great Wall of this, and they want to see these things that are now famous from the other nations, but it's the people themselves. And now you got to look at the people and see how they act, see how they, what principles do they uphold, right? We know based on Deuteronomy, the 4th chapter, this law is what gives us our wisdom. So that when people, if we did it collectively, they would hold us up on a high stature. Now, because we're not keeping it, they hold us on a very low totem pole, because we act out of our normal, our normal character. And that's what we're getting back to. So the remnant, the elect, right? The 1/3, the 144, we're the ones that's going to take that baton and carry that on into the kingdom and show the world what true righteousness and upright means as servants of the Most High God, right? So this was not a holy day or a holy period, right? We knew that when he started in the 7th month, that there were already holy days that were ordained by the Most High through the priests. This was just something that Solomon wanted to do in honor of the dedication of that temple. After that, they didn't keep it yearly a 14-day feast, because you don't read about us keeping a 14-day feast from thence on, right? But you're reading the Maccabees where we ordained that the feast of dedication be kept in its season in the winter months, right? When you get into the 9th month. All right. So, gun. Yeah, I have to check that out. Probably maybe I'll look it up after the service. You know where the praying hands came from, right? When we sit and do this, right? Because there's a lot of things that has an origin or a humble beginning that we just sometimes don't know. But yeah, when it's like this, yeah. Or it could be some figure, some person, or they could have gotten it as an adaptation for some other form of worship. Huh? Most from what I see, I don't know if that's most Muslims, they'll be like this. Yeah. So next week we're going to be back in the New Testament in the book of Hebrews, chapters 3 and 4. Hebrews chapters 3 and 4. So to the brothers and sisters, let me see if anybody is on. So for the brothers and sisters that's on the live stream, again, Shalom, Ahwab, Tawab Lab, Sister Emma, Elder Zaquan, Sister Warrior, Sister Andrea, Brother Amaziah, Brother Yamapa, Yakazakala, and others who have not made a post. All the righteous brothers and sisters, Shalom, Shalom, enjoy the day, Ashar Shabbat, Ashar Kadash, for our observance of the Sabbath day as well as the new moon. Everyone stay in the spirit. It is the Sabbath, as far as we're still not going and doing your own pleasures, as far as shopping and, you know, catering to the cares of the world. But still enjoy this day. For us who will keep the new moon as a feast day. So enjoy the remaining of the day. We're embarking on getting closer to the winter season. The temperature's dropping up here in the Northeast. It's raining today, but I know it's supposed to get a little bit colder as the weeks go on. So also Matthew's chapter 5. Is it Matthew's chapter 5? Matthew's chapter Matthew chapter 10 and verse 16. Matthew 10:16, it says, "Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless of doves." So I say this because there's a lot going on today, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of emotions going on. So you got to be wise in your daily walk, right? There's certain people who hold positions or in certain places, workplaces, or what have you, where you know, what you say may cause you a lot of attention to get yourself in certain situations that you may not can avoid, right? Who was watching this evening on social media how there's a lot of banter and back and forth of people going back and on Palestinian and who you side with, and all the celebrities got to go and pick a side, right? I don't know if you've seen if anyone's seen the video clip with the former basketball player Amar'e Stoudemire, how he said, called out some explicitives to all those people who were supporting Black Lives Matter movement, but was silent behind what's now transpiring with going on over in the Middle East, or so-called Middle East. So you gotta be wise as a serpent on what you say and how you do it. Some people can be able to be explicit and be direct. Sometimes you might need to be covert. Sometimes you may need to speak when spoken to or asked, right? That goes into making sure that you know how to answer a person who's asking of you of your faith. You got to have that right salt, like it tells you in the New Testament. I think it's Colossians 4 and 6, right? You got to have the right salt or the right verbiage, the right precepts, the right answer to give for a certain situation, right? Yahushua was one who did the same thing. When they came and they questioned him, Yahushua just didn't lay it all out in line. Sometimes he said, "Thou sayest," right? He left it out. He left it to that. He could have went into it. He knew, we know based on what we read, he could have went deep, and he didn't, because it wasn't necessary to do that, because it would have now caused a different reaction for certain things to happen. The Most High had Yahushua in a certain spirit to act accordingly. He is our example. So we now need to take that same example into our own lives. What Samak may be able to do, Kahan Nabiyah may be different, or vice versa. Or the next brother may go out there with a bullhorn and start wilding out and condemning all things, because he's free to do that, or he's able to do that based on the circumstantial situation. So just take that to heart. Be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove in these last days, even amongst our own people, right? You have to be cognizant, because everybody is not for you. So you have to, prove them through the Spirit, right? Try the Spirit by the Spirit. I mean, you got to be able to understand, what intentions or what agendas or what persons, they have on the back burner to go and say and do certain things to jam you up. So take that to heart as these days get a little bit more interesting. On social media, they say it's getting spooky out here, right? Not talk about Halloween either. But so-called, they're talking about it's getting spooky out here, as far as now the cloud is really settling down upon Babylon and the world, as to the Lord's judgment now taking shape and form.
Right. It's like it's for the brothers who watch camp. Sometimes you gotta treat social media just like you watch camp. Right? You gotta, if you can't go out there in the street, you gotta be teaching somehow. So that's where camp comes. I'm saying, I use that. That's how I got with Yasharai.
Done.
It's like like I said earlier, wherever you go, who you are. So, truth doesn't turn off once you shut down the camera, once you do all your outline, should be able to share and go a certain way. Take the truth with it.
Mm-hmm.
Posted.
We are, right? All right. So that say Shar Shabbat or Kadash, Shalom Yasha Allah, Akim or Akiwath. Happy Sabbath, happy new moon. Please and blessings to or Shalom Barakim, Akwath, or Akim. Peace and blessings to sisters and brothers that's out there. Most as well, you enjoy the remainder of the day. Stay tuned for the closing prayers. Again, any questions, make sure you write them down, bring them to the classes, and we'll go through it in more detail on Tuesday night, Friday night class. Before I close out, I'll put up, for those who want to send our offering, tithes, or donations to the school. This is it's a lot. This is the name and address for where you can send your donations. Hayat Charlotte Kanas, 3826B, Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, PA 19140. It's too fast. Make sure you just go back to the video after the conclusion. You want to do it digitally, do it through PayPal.me/HYK12, or for Cash App, $ HaKanas, capital H, capital K, or HaKanas. If you want to join the teleconferences for the Tuesday night, Friday night class, this is the number along with the PIN. Again, that's Tuesday 7 to 10, Friday 7 to 10, 667-770-1085, and the PIN is 521-455. Or if you're able to log on to Zoom, it's profitabletalks.com. Again, that's profitabletalks.com if you want to participate and be able to show yourself so that we can see, put names to faces, and to be like we're physically classrooms together. Again, you can log on. You don't need anything specific. Just be a little bit tech savvy, because sometimes brothers and sisters get a little bit weary on how to mute yourself. Raise your hand. I don't get into that myself because I'm not mainly a Zoom person, Microsoft Teams person, but either here or there. All right. So with that, we're going to set up the closing prayers and enjoy the rest of the day. Again, Shalom Yashrala, all praise, honor, and glory goes to the Most High Yahweh Shah. All praise, honor, and glory again to the Most High Yahweh Shah. Knowledge, this truth, this wisdom, this understanding, and the privilege of being in this truth in these last days. All right, it's a privilege to be here through the Most High in Christ. It is not of our own will. All right, so we always have to be grateful for the Lord's mercy. All right, shalom.
Barak Yahweh, Yahweh Shah, Ran, now Parya, Kapin, Wala Amun, by Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, As, Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed be Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shah, for the Most High in the name of Christ, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shah, with Israel. A Madwa, Rosalind, stand and face truth. Closing prayer. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Abakushah, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalat, Maika Allah, Waha Allahayim, Tazwatakim, La, Shemo Ayel, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyak, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabim, Kakama, Rabim, Ba'ai, Rabim, Bayana, Rabim, Babalonwa, Rabim, Amawan, Rabim, Aqua, Rabim, Ahabim, Rabim, Agana, Rachanaya, Vasalat, Ko, Katayamnawa, Lahaakim, Wa Akiwa, Wa Yasha'ala, Tamyad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, the water, Aman. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, and spiritual protection. And forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabak Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh. Translation. Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel in the house of books or the schools. In Deuteronomy 6:4, you know Israel, the Lord our power, is one power. All right. Again, Shalom, Yashala. Enjoy another day.
Shalom. Shalom.